Hero of the Otherworldly Castle. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, World at War. Bernie, didn't the Lord keep you for the meeting today? A young woman asked curiously to Bernie, who suddenly came back. Bernie took off his coat and handed it to the young woman, sat on the chair covered with fine cotton cloth, breathed a sigh of relief and replied, "Jenny, today's meeting is over, so I can come back so early." Bernie Clee was originally a member of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce. After volunteering to unite the Nanshan territory and several surrounding territories to attack the Zaya Kingdom that occupied the Linhai Basin without success, he was expelled from the Garfield Chamber of Commerce, as it should be. If the Chamber of Commerce had not seen that Bernie had brought a lot of benefits to the Chamber of Commerce in the past, he would have been sunk to the bottom of the river long ago, and he would not have been expelled so simply. Bernie returned to Kuar City in disgrace and opened a tavern on the bustling street to make a living with his previous rich savings. After offending the Garfield Chamber of Commerce, he still did business on the Chamber of Commerce's territory. Naturally, Bernie looked down on him as being oppressed by the lower class, so his business was certainly not doing well. Seeing that he was going to lose money, Bernie had to move out of the Cross River City and brought his elderly parents, young wife, and young children to a Viscount's territory in the south. However, on the way to move, war broke out. One day, the caravan he followed was robbed by a group of thieves on the road. The caravan guards abandoned the caravan and the passengers and fled alone. In the chaos, Bernie's parents and children were scattered. Seeing the thieves holding weapons and killing anyone they saw, he had to hold his wife's hand and flee from the road with others. The next day, Bernie returned to the original place to look for his parents and children, but there was only a charred ground left. It seemed that the thieves set fire after killing people. Since the plague, everyone knows some simple knowledge of preventing and controlling the plague, so this fire should be the thieves cremating after killing people to prevent the plague. But in this way, Bernie would not know the safety of his family. He had to suppress his inner sadness and despair and comfort his tearful wife, telling her that it was good news that they had not seen the body. In the next few days, the two looked for all the places they could find nearby, but they did not find their family. They had to comfort themselves repeatedly. Maybe they had left with others. Bernie and his wife also continued to move forward along the mainland, but at this time they had not had a good meal for several days, and they were already very tired and hungry. Fortunately, when they were about to give up, they encountered a small village, but this village seemed to have been visited by thieves and had become dilapidated. When Bernie and his wife walked into the ruined village, they found something to eat in the farmland outside the ruins, and then found a place that could barely block the wind and rain to rest for a night. The next day, the two of them found enough food from the farmland for them to eat for a few days and continued on the road to the south. In this way, they walked and stopped along the way. With Bernie's wisdom and the persistence of the two, they finally met a large caravan heading south a few days later. After the leader of the caravan heard Bernie's experience, he kindly took the two of them forward. After this period of time, Bernie and his wife knew that their family was in danger, but it was precisely because of the hardships of these days that the couple became stronger. 10 days later, Bernie followed the caravan and finally arrived at the destination, a city in the Viscount's territory. With Bernie's ability, he soon found a job under the financial officer of the Viscount's territory and became an accountant. Just when Bernie thought he could live a peaceful life like this, the flames of war burned to this place. Have you heard that the southern country of Philomet has attacked the southern territory and is very close to us? Bernie's colleagues chatted during the break at work. Yes, I heard that the kingdom of Philomet has an army of 100,000. With so many people, how can our small viscountry resist them? That's right, but I heard that, as long as the Lord is willing to be loyal to the monarch of the kingdom of Philomet and obey orders, he will not attack. With the temper of our Lord, it is probably difficult to get him to bow to others. Not to mention that, even if he is loyal to the kingdom of Philomet, the soldiers of the territory will be withdrawn to fight, and if the number is not enough, he will have to recruit soldiers. Hearing this, Bernie also knew the latest situation in the south. Although he heard that the former Nanshan territory also embarked on the road of rebellion against the convention with the support of the Xia kingdom, he did not expect that the Nanshan territory would be so powerful now. Back then, Bernie was also a superior person. He had also been an envoy to the Nanshan territory to let the other surrounding territories unite to attack the rebellious Xia kingdom. Alas, Bernie sighed for a long time. The glory of the past is a world of difference compared to the current situation. However, he is quite satisfied with his current life. He only thinks about his past glory when it is late at night. Therefore, when Bernie learned that his current life was going to be lost again, he was inevitably a little anxious. So he said, the Lord will resist the attack of the Fulimid kingdom, and he will probably start conscription. What can we do? Yeah, we won't be drafted into the army, right? When his colleagues heard what Bernie said, they all became a little worried. Aren't we working under the Lord? Even if we are drafted into the army, it won't be our turn. Bernie analyzed everyone's current situation to his colleagues and comforted others. Is that so? Fortunately, all the colleagues breathed a sigh of relief. A young man who seemed to be someone's relative smiled at Bernie and said, Bernie, you are still smart. If I could be as smart as you, I would work directly for the Lord. Speaking unintentionally, the listener is interested. When Bernie heard this, a flash of lightning flashed through his mind. Yes, I have the ability. Maybe this is my chance. Bernie made up his mind secretly, but he did not act immediately. He did not want to make the same mistake as last time. After get off work, Bernie returned home. He did not tell his wife about his plan. He just told his wife that he would come home a little later every day after get off work. His wife thought it was because of his busy work, so she did not ask more questions. In fact, Bernie went to get information after get off work. He would go to taverns, restaurants, caravans. As long as he could get information about the surrounding territories, he would go there. After going out early and returning late for more than half a month, Bernie finally got the information he wanted, and his plan was about to begin. Chapter 252, Revealing Identity. Sir, can you introduce me to the Lord? That day, Bernie said respectfully to the treasurer, I have something important to report to the Lord. The fat treasurer asked curiously, Bernie, do you have anything important to report to the Lord? Tell me, I can tell the Lord. The treasurer was very satisfied with Bernie. Bernie was usually smart and capable, didn't talk much, and kept accounts very quickly and accurately. It was said that he had worked for the Garfield Chamber of Commerce before. It was because of this that the treasurer accepted this young man who came to apply for a job. But now this smart and capable young man seemed a little impatient and wanted to go directly to the Lord to get his attention. Therefore, the treasurer wanted to know what important matter the other party had that could be used for Bernie's promotion. After hearing what his boss said, Bernie probably guessed what the other party was thinking, but since he dared to ask the other party for an introduction, he was not afraid of the other party's questions, so he replied, Sir, I learned that the southern country of Falimet is about to attack our territory. What does this have to do with you? The treasurer interrupted Bernie and waved his hand impatiently. Go and do your work, if you have nothing to do. Do you have any way to deal with the country of Falimet? Bernie did not obey his boss and leave. Instead, he smiled slightly and said confidently, Yes, I do have a way to protect the territory from war. What? Say it again. The treasurer couldn't believe his ears. Bernie said it again. The treasurer frowned after listening. He was a little bit unconvinced, but looking at Bernie's confident look, he asked, What method is it? Tell me about it. Okay, sir. Bernie expected the other party's inquiry. After a slight pause, he replied, Your lord, I learned that the former Nanshan territory did not abide by the convention and wantonly invaded the surrounding territories. After occupying them, it established the kingdom of Fulimid according to the method of the barbaric territory of Xia in the south. Speak to the point. The treasurer interrupted Bernie's long speech that he was about to make. Yes. Bernie reluctantly accepted the order. He couldn't afford to offend the other party yet. After thinking for a while, he picked the key point and said, I'm sure that I can persuade the lords of the three surrounding viscounties to form a united force and form an alliance to resist the invasion of the Freemide kingdom. Just you? The financial officer heard Bernie's words and smiled contemptuously. He didn't care about Bernie's feelings and said, "Can you do it?" Bernie was very helpless about his boss's sneer. In order to live a peaceful life and prevent the people of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce from causing trouble for him, he didn't mention his past in detail when he came to the financial officer to do things. He just said roughly that he had worked for the Garfield Chamber of Commerce, but now he was looked down upon by the incompetent financial officer of a small viscount's territory. Bernie had to risk being harassed by the people of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce and told the financial officer about his past. Bernie smiled slightly and said with his chest puffed out, "I'm Bernie Klee, the former external representative of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce and one of the permanent directors in Cross River City. I once earned more than 10,000 gold coins for the Garfield Chamber of Commerce. It's just that." At this point, Bernie's puffed out chest relaxed and said, "It's just that, when I was forming a coalition with the lords including the former Nanshan Lord, a plague broke out, and my efforts, like the blue moon and the river, have fallen to the current situation. Turns out it's you." After hearing Bernie's self-introduction, the financial officer seemed to suddenly remember something. After repeatedly mentioning Bernie up and down several times, he said, I seem to have seen you somewhere. I didn't expect that the once glorious representative of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce is now just a small accountant under me. TSK. In the past, Bernie, as the representative of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce, was so high-spirited and never humbled himself in front of the lords and nobles. But now, he is not to say that he is lost, but he still feels decadent, lonely, and ordinary. Such a big change makes people feel that he is a completely different person. Please forgive me for making fun of you. Bernie smiled bitterly, bowed to the treasurer and said, "Now, can you introduce me to the Lord?" Bernie's attitude was very positive. He knew that, no matter how dazzling he was in the past, he was just an accountant under the treasurer of the Viscount's territory. Okay. The treasurer thought carefully, and after a while, he made up his mind and said, "Since you are the former representative, I also believe that with your ability, this alliance has a very high chance of success." "Thank you, sir." Bernie bowed again to thank him. "I will definitely remember your promotion today." If the treasurer had not seen Bernie's former identity, he would not have cared about this trivial matter. The invasion of the kingdom of Philomet had nothing to do with him. Anyway, when the time came, the territory could not be defended. He only needed to swear allegiance to the monarch of the kingdom of Philomet. After all, he was not the lord, so it didn't matter who he worked for. Moreover, if Bernie united the surrounding territories with his introduction, the credit would not be lost. If it failed, he could just swear allegiance to the kingdom of Philomet. He should have known how to make such a win-win choice. Well, the treasurer was very satisfied with Bernie's attitude. The Chamber of Commerce representative, whom he used to treat with respect, was now working under him, and was so tactful. He still felt a sense of accomplishment. The treasurer stood up and said, "Come with me. It's still early. I'll take you to the castle to see the Lord." Yes. Bernie made way for the treasurer to walk in front, and he followed, and went to the castle not far away to see the Lord. In a room on the second floor of the castle, the treasurer introduced Bernie to the Lord and said, "My lord, this is one of my accountants, and also Bernie Klee, the former external representative of the Garfield Chamber of Commerce." "Oh, Your Excellency the representative?" The middle-aged lord with a little white hair heard the introduction of the treasurer, and looked Bernie up and down in surprise. Bernie bowed to the lord, and behaved in a proper manner. There was nothing wrong with him. The treasurer continued, "It is only now that I have discovered that this Bernie is the former Your Excellency the representative. If Bernie had not told me his identity himself, I would not have recognized him. I wonder what you are here to see me for today?" the lord asked curiously. He did not believe that the former Your Excellency the representative would be easily exposed after choosing to hide his identity. Before Bernie could reply, the treasurer replied first, "Lord, as long as we unite with several viscounts and lords around, we can prevent the territory from being invaded by the southern country of Philomet, and Bernie is an ideal envoy." The treasurer was a little bit cunning here. He told the lord about this method, so that people who didn't know would think that it was his idea, and he also had the credit of recommending talents. "I see. The Lord was not a fool. He was somewhat clear about his subordinates and knew that this method must have been thought of by Bernie. However, he didn't care about these details as long as he could solve the current problem. Bernie, right? Are you sure you can convince the surrounding lords? The Lord asked Bernie directly and seriously. Chapter 253 Joint Lobbying. Hearing the Lord's question, Bernie smiled confidently and said, "Your Excellency, I'm very confident that I can persuade the surrounding lords to form an alliance with you." Okay. The Lord slapped the table, stood up and said sternly, "As long as you are confident that you can complete this task, I will appoint you as my envoy to represent me to form an alliance. I obey your command." Bernie heard the words he was looking forward to very much, and he held back his inner excitement, maintained his confidence, bowed and saluted to take on this task. The Lord was also forced to do nothing, otherwise he would not have placed his hopes in the hands of a stranger. Otherwise he could only risk the city's destruction and exile to resist the invasion of the Philimid kingdom alone. On the other hand, it was precisely because of Bernie's past identity and experience that he was able to gain the Lord's trust. "Treasurer, I also know your contribution. When the envoy Bernie returns victorious, I remember that there is a village not far outside the city, and I will reward him to you." The Lord pondered for a moment and made a promise to the treasurer. However, this promise can only be fulfilled after Bernie succeeds. The Lord has this insurance to let the other party remember that the survival of the territory is closely related to the other party's interests. After being promoted to a diplomat, Bernie did not delay for long. He went home and told his wife about his experience today. He asked his wife to pack his luggage for him and left the city with the Lord's letter the next day and began his lobbying journey. Bernie's first stop was the territory in the south that was being attacked. He wanted to succeed in his first stop so that he would be more confident when facing other territories. The territory in the south was also a Viscount territory. The Lord was a young man named Charlie. He had just taken over the position of Lord not long ago. He was in the stage of consolidating his position when he was approached by the kingdom of Philimid. When all his subordinates persuaded him to surrender, Charlie rejected the dissent and decided to take the path of stubborn resistance. He believed that there were still many lords who were unwilling to give up like him. As long as they united, they would not have to be afraid of the kingdom of Philimid. On the other hand, Charlie had just become the Lord and was about to show his skills and enjoy the power in his hands. At this time, someone asked him to give up his power, and he was unwilling to do so. So he decided to take the road of resistance. Fortunately, he was not really alone. The Knight Commander and the knights who held military power all supported his decision. In addition, the treasurer also supported him for his own interests. With money and the support of the military, Charlie ordered to start recruiting soldiers and expand the army. Therefore, when Bernie arrived at Otherworldly Castle, the outside of the city was still resisting stubbornly, but the soldiers in the city were almost exhausted. See His Excellency the Viscount. In the castle hall, after stating his identity, Bernie stated his purpose in front of many dignitaries. "I'm here on behalf of Lord Ellie to form an alliance with His Excellency the Viscount." Ellie is the name of the Lord that Bernie is now loyal to. After Charlie waited for Bernie to explain his intention, he did not think much and immediately said happily, "That's great. This Lord agrees to form an alliance. I wonder when Lord Ellie will send troops to support. Your Excellency, as long as you agree to form an alliance to fight against the kingdom of Philimid, Lord Ellie can send troops immediately." Bernie saw that the young lord was so easy to talk to, and the expected answer made him more confident in the next lobbying. "Well, Your Excellency, the envoy, my lord's army is almost unable to stop it. Please send troops to support your territory immediately." Charlie immediately signed the joint alliance document handed to him by Bernie. "Your Excellency, please rest assured, I will write a letter and have someone send it back to the territory as soon as possible." Bernie put away the alliance document with his name signed and made a decision immediately. Bernie also knew that the Lord in front of him was almost desperate, so he did not say much politely. He wrote a brief without delay and asked the guards who came with him to ride wildebeests back to the territory quickly to call for reinforcement. Before the mission, Bernie discussed with Viscount Ellie and told him his idea. The first target of the alliance was Lord Charlie, who was under attack in the south. Bernie, why did you choose this territory that is about to be attacked? If it is attacked, wouldn't the alliance be meaningless? After hearing Bernie's choice, it was normal for Ellie to have such doubts. Bernie explained, it is precisely because the southern territory is still resisting, which means that the lord of this territory is also a person who wants to resist like the lord, and this is exactly what we need to fight for. Seeing that Ellie nodded, Bernie continued, in addition, the territory is being invaded. If the lord sends troops to rescue at this time, then after successfully resisting the kingdom of Philomet, the lord will have the grace of rescue for this territory, which can increase the lord's voice in the alliance. I see. When Ellie heard this, he knew Bernie's plan. Bernie was trying to gain a voice for him in the future alliance. At this moment, Ellie had to praise Bernie's wisdom. He had already considered his future success before the alliance was formed. This was the first time Ellie had seen such wisdom. So after learning of Bernie's plan, Ellie gave Bernie full authority to go on missions to the surrounding territories for him. When he needed support, he only needed to tell him, and he would do his best to support Bernie. In fact, in addition to the two reasons that Bernie told Viscount Ellie, there was another reason, which was that giving a helping hand in times of crisis was the easiest way to succeed. Otherwise, how could he reflect his value? Bernie stayed in Charles' territory for a few more days, and only set off again to the next territory after the reinforcement from his own territory arrived. During the few days he was with him, he saw with his own eyes how large the number of the army of the Freemite Kingdom was, and there were no fewer elite soldiers. He didn't dare to believe that with the reinforcement from the territory, he could repel the attack of the Freemite Kingdom. Even with the reinforcement sent by Lord Eiley, Charles' territory could only hold on for a while longer. Bernie calculated from the intelligence information he got, and he felt that at least an alliance of 4 viscounts was needed to completely resist the attack of the Freemite Kingdom. Even so, it was only to defend itself. If it was to counterattack, at least 7 viscounts would be needed to unite. But this was too far-fetched, and even if there were so many territories to form an alliance, Bernie could not guarantee whether he could launch a counterattack. With his many years of experience, Bernie thought that he could not count on counterattacking the Freemite Kingdom. The united forces were still a few forces, no matter how they were united. It was okay to work together for defense, but it was better to forget about attacking together. In the following time, Bernie first went to the neighboring viscountry in the west of the territory to lobby. With the actual evidence of the alliance between the two forces, Bernie did not spend much effort to convince the lord of this territory. After asking this viscount to send troops to support Charles' territory immediately, Bernie returned to the territory without stopping. He wanted to report his achievements to Lord Eiley in person, and he also had to go home to see his wife who he had not seen for many days. The reason why Bernie returned to the territory at this time, in addition to reporting to the Lord, was also because the next Viscount territory he was going to lobby was to the east of the Eiley territory. Chapter 254 Successful Defense. My lord, I have fulfilled your mission, and have united the 2 Viscounts in the south and the west. Bernie reported the achievements of the past period when he met with Eiley. Eiley was very happy to hear Bernie's report. With Bernie's achievements, he can continue to be his lord without any worries. Such achievements cannot be accomplished by just anyone. Very good, Bernie, thank you for your hard work. Eiley encouraged Bernie, and then said, the only territory left is the east, and you will have to make a trip there again. Your lord, that's not right. This is what I should do. Bernie bowed to Eiley and said, I will set out for the last territory to lobby tomorrow. Well, okay. Eiley seemed to have thought of something, and said to Bernie kindly, Bernie, I heard that your current home is still a rented house. Yes, your lordship, I have fled here and have nothing, so I can only stay in a civilian house. Bernie's current residence is just a house rented from a civilian. Hearing Eiley's words, Bernie knew that the other party should be rewarding his efforts. Sure enough, when Eiley heard Bernie's answer, he waved his hand and said, how can this be? My important diplomat actually lives in a civilian's house. If this gets out, won't others laugh at my stinginess? Eiley deliberately paused, as if recalling something, and said, how about this? My lord confiscated the courtyard of a wealthy businessman who was against me some time ago, and I will give it to you. Bernie did not refuse. He really needed a stable residence. He also knew the reason why Lord Yili did this, so he bowed and said tactfully, "Thank you for the reward, my lord. I will be loyal to you until death." Yili did this to win over Bernie. After all, such a down and out, but capable talent is rare. Whether it is for the other party's achievements or to make the other party work harder for him, it is necessary to win him over. That night, with the help of the castle's guards and servants, Bernie moved into his new home with his wife and a few pieces of luggage. When he arrived at his new home, Bernie discovered that the Lord had rewarded him with more than just a courtyard. 5 male and 5 female servants, 2 guards, 10 gold coins, and enough living supplies for the couple to live for a long time. It seems that Lord Yili has put a lot of effort into winning his heart. Even though Bernie knew the reason for everything Lord Yili did, he couldn't help but have the idea of being loyal to him. Bernie sighed as he watched his life getting better and better. People only know the happiness they once had after they lose it. With a stable home, Bernie has put down the last bit of worry in his heart, and then he can pursue the glory he once lost. The next day, Bernie followed his promise, bid farewell to the Lord, left home and the city with his guards, and went to the Viscount's territory in the east for the final lobbying. The final lobbying went very smoothly, because the territory of Charlie in the south was invaded by the Kingdom of Free Might, and the lord of this territory must have known about it. The lord of this territory was originally prepared to lose his current status, surrender, and be loyal to the monarch of Free Might, just waiting for the army of Free Might to land outside the city. Who knew that it was not the army of Free Might that came, but the envoy of the neighboring territory in the west, and this envoy also brought him a better choice. Since he didn't have to lose his current honor, the Lord certainly agreed to the alliance, and then sent 20,000 troops to support Lord Charlie in the south. So far, Bernie's mission was successfully completed. The alliance of a total of 4 viscounts had a considerable sphere of influence, and the number of coalition forces reached 60,000 to 70,000. After Parker of Free Might learned that a united force had appeared in the north, he saw that the pace of expansion was blocked, and he had no choice but to withdraw his troops. Because the expansion of Free Might was not only in the north, but also in the east and west. Once the north was blocked, he could also send troops to support in the other 2 directions. However, what Parker did not expect was that this setback was just the beginning. Bernie's lobbying made the 4 viscounts form an alliance. After the army of the Free Might Kingdom withdrew, the lords of the 4 territories held a meeting in the castle of Ellie. "My lords, I'm honored to host this meeting under the trust of the lords." The meeting ceremony was hosted by Bernie, a great hero. This time, under the decision of the lords, a total of 4 territories formed an alliance and successfully resisted the shameless invasion of the Free Might Kingdom. Bernie bowed to Ellie and the other 3 lords. Hearing Bernie's opening speech, the 4 lords and other dignitaries present, no matter what they thought in their hearts, all smiled and applauded on the surface. Charlie looked around, and finally looked at Ellie and Bernie with sincere gratitude. "Your Excellency, the envoy is right. Thanks to the help of Your Excellency Viscount Ellie and the 2 viscounts, this lord was able to resist the attack of the Kingdom of Falamet. Otherwise, this lord would become a civilian and live a life worse than death." Bernie looked at Lord Ellie and smiled at each other. Charlie's attitude was exactly what they wanted. Ellie shook his hand and said, "Your Excellency Viscount Charlie, that's serious. The Kingdom of Falamet shamelessly violated the convention and invaded many territories. This lord just did what he should do. Yes, although our territories are not directly bordering the Kingdom of Falamet now, if we don't unite now, it will be too late when the Kingdom of Falamet invades our territories." This was said by the Lord of the Western Territory. That's right. To put it bluntly, if Lord Yili hadn't sent His Excellency the envoy to the alliance, this lord would have even planned to surrender. Of course, now that this lord has joined the alliance, he will definitely resist to the end. This is what the lord who was ready to surrender said in the east of the territory. Yili laughed and said, "Your Excellency, the Viscount is right. No matter what happened before, now that we are united, we must work together to safeguard the dignity of the lord and fight against the forces that violate the Continental Convention." Just as many dignitaries were laughing heartily, Bernie said a little, "My lords, now our 4 territories are united, but what about the other territories? especially the territories in other directions of the Freemite Kingdom. They are also suffering from the invasion of the Freemite Kingdom. Bernie, why are you saying this at this time? Lord Eiley seemed to be blaming Bernie, a little disappointed, but in fact he was defending Bernie in front of many lords. Because even if Bernie had made great contributions, he was just an official without a noble title. For many lords and dignitaries, Bernie's identity as a commoner was very cheap. It's okay, Lord Eiley, this lord wants to hear the Lord Envoy's thoughts. Charlie was very grateful to Bernie because he escaped a disaster because of Bernie, but Bernie didn't have a noble title, so he had to call him Lord Envoy. Well, since Lord Charlie has spoken for you, Bernie, tell me what you think. Eiley went down the stairs, and he also wanted to hear the opinions of Bernie, a smart man. Chapter 255 Castle Party. Thank you, Lord Viscount. Thank you, Lord. After thanking the two lords, Bernie pondered for a moment and said, I'm worried that the country of Philomet will become stronger as the land expands. With the union of our 4 territories now, we will not be able to resist the powerful country of Philomet at that time. After Bernie finished speaking, the hall suddenly became quiet. Everyone looked at Bernie with a very surprised expression, as if to say, what you said makes sense. How did you think of it? How can you be so smart? Even those who already knew that Bernie had far-sighted wisdom were surprised again by this remark. They didn't expect Bernie to be able to see so deeply and so far. Yes, what should we do in the future? We can still hold on now, but it's hard to say in the future. Your Excellency the Envoy, what do you think we should do? Or should we find some more territories to join us? This was Charlie's inquiry and suggestion. The Viscount's proposal may work, but it is not a long-term solution. Bernie shook his head and refused after hearing Charlie's suggestion. Even if we want other neighboring territories to join our alliance, the other party will not agree. Moreover, there are too many territories in the alliance, so there will be many conflicts within the alliance, and they will also hold each other back when facing external forces. It is better not to have such an alliance. Bernie has thought of this method, but with the lessons learned from the past, he will not make the same mistake again. When he was in the Garfield Chamber of Commerce, when fighting against Zaya country, he even thought of uniting more than a dozen territories, but who knew that in actual operation, those territories far away from Zaya country would not buy it at all. At that time, Bernie knew the nature of these powerful people. As long as it was not a fire that burned their eyebrows, they would not care much about other things. The invasion of the Philomet Kingdom this time was the same. If the Philomet Kingdom had not invaded the doorsteps of the lords, no one would care, as if doing so would prevent the Philomet Kingdom from invading their territories. Therefore, these 4 territories can form an alliance smoothly because of the common threat, but it is difficult for the territories behind that have no sense of crisis to form an alliance. It is impossible to say that these lords do not know the threat of the Freemite Kingdom. It is just that people's ostrich mentality makes them pretend not to see it. In addition, even if a few far-sighted lords know and want to act, they will be powerless because of their weak strength. This is the disadvantage of not having a unified regime. It is impossible to integrate the forces of all parties, and it is impossible to let the forces of all parties gather together. Even if there are several territories united, it can only stop here. It is extremely difficult to go further. After listening to Bernie's analysis, everyone present nodded in agreement, as if they had suddenly realized something. Bernie, then what can you do to stop the expansion of the Freemite Kingdom? Lord Eiley's question is indeed a bit embarrassing. He himself knows that this is embarrassing, and he does not have much expectation for the result. It's just that a little extravagant hope in his heart made Eiley ask this question. Bernie smiled confidently and replied, I have a way to limit the expansion of the Freemite Kingdom. Eiley didn't expect that Bernie really had a way. This was really a surprise. He asked anxiously, what is the way? My lord, since the alliance can't add more territories, we can let other territories unite like our alliance. Bernie said his own way. I see. When Eiley heard this, his eyes lit up, but after thinking about it carefully, he was still a little disappointed and said, but how can we let other territories unite? I can't control other territories. My lord is right. Bernie was not embarrassed by this problem, but continued with confidence, I can go to other territories, to persuade them to form an alliance, to fight against the Freemite Kingdom together. You go? Yili looked at Bernie in surprise. He didn't expect that Bernie could go to such a length to limit the expansion of the Freemite Kingdom. However, Yili was reluctant to let Bernie go, because with Bernie around, he could rely on his wisdom to gain more say in the alliance. So Yili said in embarrassment, "Can we let others go? You see, our territories can unite, and other territories can also unite in the same way." Yili's words are right. No one in the world is really a fool. Other territories saw that Yili and other 4 territories could unite to resist the attack of the Freemite Kingdom, so they would definitely think of this method. It was precisely because of this that Bernie wanted to take this opportunity to improve his status in the heart of Lord Yili, and he could also take this opportunity to establish more merits. But Bernie would not give up his plan because of the Lord's 2 words. Bernie explained to Ellie, "Lord, I'm still worried. If other territories do not establish a union, it will be too late when the kingdom of Flimet expands and becomes strong. Your Excellency the envoy is right. Your Excellency Ellie should still look further ahead." "That's right. I admire what Your Excellency the envoy has done. Your Excellency the envoy, I look forward to your victorious return." The lords all agreed with Bernie's words and persuaded the reluctant Ellie. As for how much of these words were really from the heart, except for Charlie, it depends on the real thoughts of the lords. In the eyes of these lords, with the assistance of Bernie, Lord Ella's prestige in the alliance is getting higher and higher, which is not conducive to their interests. "You said that we are all viscounts, and you are high above everyone. This is not okay." Bernie frowned when he listened to the praise and persuasion of the lords. The praise of other lords for him is not a good sign. At this time, Yili's face was also very ugly, but seeing that the other 3 lords agreed, he had to agree. "Well, Bernie, you go to other territories adjacent to the Freemite Kingdom, as you command." Bernie got the order he wanted, but he was not happy. Finally, he thought for a while and said, "My lord, since I have to lobby the territories, I have to tell you about our alliance." After Yili and the other 3 lords nodded, he continued, "Therefore, I suggest giving our alliance a name, so that it can be distinguished from the alliances of other territories." Without waiting for the 4 lords to respond, Bernie said to himself, "I suggest that the name of the alliance be Yili Union." As soon as the name came out, Yili's face became relaxed, while the other lords became ugly, and the changes before and after formed a sharp contrast. "No, our union is composed of 4 territories. How can it be named after Lord Yili?" The lord on the west was the first to object. The lord of the eastern territory was also very opposed. "That's right, we have 4 viscounts here. We can't just use the name of Viscount Yili." Bernie expected the opposition of these 2 people, and this was also the result he wanted. After all, Bernie was Yili's subordinate. When other lords praised him and Yili opposed, he had to use this method to express his loyalty to Yili. Otherwise, even if Bernie had great ability, it would probably be a dead end. The position of the buttocks still needs to be correct. Chapter 256. Confusing. This lord agrees with this name. Charlie voted in favor when everyone else voted against it. This was a result that Bernie had not expected. In his imagination, no matter how grateful Charlie was for Lord Ella's help, he would still insist when it came to the honor of the Lord. Unexpectedly, Charlie also agreed to name the alliance after Ellie, which was really beyond his expectations. While Bernie was still thinking about why Charlie did this, Ellie finally spoke. "This lord thinks this name is very good, because our alliance was established at the suggestion of this lord." Ellie's original dissatisfaction with Bernie disappeared with the other party's suggestion, thinking that Bernie was still on his side as a lord, and was still loyal to him. "Mr. Yili is right. If it weren't for Mr. Yili's proposal, my territory would have been occupied by the Freemite Kingdom long ago. Then it would be the turn of all of you present to be attacked by the Freemite Kingdom. How could we be arguing leisurely here now?" Charlie's words made Bernie understand. It turned out that Charlie had this idea not only for the reasons mentioned by the other party, but also because Charlie's territory was the one that was rescued. No matter what the reason was, as long as it was the rescued party, its status in the alliance was naturally lower. So no matter what name the alliance used, it had nothing to do with Charlie. It would be better to take this opportunity to stand on Yili's side and strive for more voice for Charlie in the alliance. because in order to improve his voice, Yili also needs teammates. If there is a chance, it would be best to have an obedient younger brother. This can also be regarded as a team problem. After Bernie figured it out, he shook his head secretly. There were such disputes in these 4 territories, not to mention uniting more territories to join the alliance. But Bernie forgot that the reason why the 4 lords had the current dispute was not because of his proposal. It can only be said that where there are people, there are rivers and lakes. Later, with the dispute, the 2 lords on the east and west sides lost to the alliance of Eri and Charlie due to geographical and lack of prestige, and the name of the alliance was finally decided to be Eri Alliance. So far, 2 forces have emerged in the alliance, and an unhealable crack has appeared between the 2 parties. It can also be seen from this that Bernie's strategy has achieved great success at the beginning, allowing Eri to gain great prestige in the alliance and making Lord Charlie willing to be under him. With this incident, Eri has full trust in Bernie and let Bernie go out to lobby with confidence. It can be said that Bernie's operation has maximized his wisdom, make sufficient preparations in advance, carefully calculate multiple parties, and have the ability to respond to emergencies. It makes him a little unbelievable when he thinks back on it afterwards, plus a very fulfilling sense of accomplishment. Wandering between the forces of all parties with wisdom, he controls the higher lords and dignitaries in his palms. This feeling was something he had never experienced before, and it gave Bernie a feeling of finding the meaning of life. After returning home, Bernie was proud of himself for a while under his wife's puzzled eyes, but he couldn't say it out loud, so he could only enjoy it secretly, which made him a little dissatisfied. After a few days, Bernie was ready, bid farewell to the Lord, and embarked on a journey to lobby various territories. His first stop was several territories located west of the Kingdom of Flimet, hundreds of kilometers away from the territory of Eli. In order to avoid the power of the Kingdom of Flimet, he had to take a detour. He didn't expect that the expansion of the Kingdom of Flimet would be so fast, which made Bernie feel an impatient sense of crisis. What Bernie said to the 4 lords in the castle hall was not made up by him. Bernie really thought so. The expansion of the Kingdom of Flimet was something he didn't want to see. It was very difficult for him to have his current life. He didn't want his wife to disappear like his parents and children because of the war. However, Bernie's wish was doomed to fail. Neither his parents and children nor the world without war was subject to his will. In the castle of Nanshan City, the capital of the Kingdom of Flimet, Parker knew that he should stop and digest it after learning that 4 viscounts in the north had united to hinder his expansion plan. Because once the first united force appeared, a series of alliances would follow, so Parker issued an order to stop the advance once the expansion was blocked. Sure enough, not long after, following the united forces in the north, an alliance consisting of 3 viscounts and 2 baronies also appeared in the west. As for the expansion to the east, Parker consciously stopped after occupying and annexing 4 or 5 territories, because if he went 2 or 3 more territories to the east, he would encounter the Kingdom of Baxter. He did not want to be directly hostile to the Kingdom of Baxter now, and it would be good to have some buffer territories in the middle. The Kingdom of Baxter was the former East Burlington, which was facing the ocean and mountains in the east. After Aubrey Baxter, the Lord of Dongbo territory, occupied the 5 surrounding territories, he established a country named after his surname. The reason why Parker had such insight was that Zaya State was giving him advice behind the scenes, especially Chang Sheng. Basically, Chang Sheng would go to Nanshan City every once in a while and give Parker a lot of suggestions in a tactful way, such as the inevitable emergence of a united force and the idea of stopping when things are going well. The reason why Zaya State did this was that it regarded the Free Might State as Zaya State's agent outside Shanhaiguan. Yang Song didn't want to finally have a fairly obedient force to be ruined by Parker's ignorance and greed. Even if Free Might State was to collapse, it had to be under the control of Zaya State. Now Zaya State is in a stage of rapid development, and it doesn't want the war to slow down Zaya State's development. If such a situation really happens, Yang Song will probably have the heart to kill. On the other hand, Aubrey Baxter, the monarch of the Baxter State in the east, was also distressed. Although his location was superior, on the other hand, it was far away from the center of civilization and was a remote place. Therefore, Aubrey Baxter is planning the next wave of expansion, with the direction prioritizing the north, and it is best to open up the territory where the Cross River Bridge is located, so as to connect to the central area that has been developed for many years. As for the west, his idea coincides with Parker's. Neither of them wants to conflict with each other at this time. After all, both countries are considered to be a big force. Once they fight, it will not be decided overnight. The two countries have such a tacit understanding, which makes the several territories between the two countries feel relieved while tense. At the same time, they all unite, fearing that the powerful forces on both sides will suddenly attack one day. Marquis Alex Aylmer, who is farther west, has become a powerful force south of the Barren River and east of the Dusk Desert, after annexing a circle of surrounding territories. After hearing the news of the establishment of the two countries of Philomet and Baxter, Alex Aylmer also established a country, which he named Inuan Country. There is a distance of 1,900 kilometers between Inuan and Nanshan City and Philomet, and there are countless forces in between, but most of them exist in the form of alliances. These united forces are not like Parker in Nanshan territory who has the assistance of Zaya country, nor are they like Dongbo territory who has natural geographical advantages, nor are they like the Marquis territory which already has strong strength. They can only keep each other warm. But it is still uncertain what will happen in the future. Everything is like groping forward in the fog. The front is full of unknowns. If you are not careful, the next step will be a bottomless abyss. These chapters are both explanations and foreshadowings for the future. A new plot is about to unfold. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Ice Ocean Island. There is a large island in the North Ocean, thousands of kilometers north of Linhai town in Zaya country, which is covered with ice and snow all year round. Because this island has only one season a year, winter, it is accompanied by ice and snow that never melts all year round, so it is called Ice and Snow Island. Sister, the goldfish this year is not selling well. How can we survive this ice sea period? Anna stood in the middle of the hall and reported this year's harvest to her lord sister with a sad face. Although there is only one winter on the Ice and Snow Island, due to its geographical location, the residents of the island still divide it into two periods, ice sea period and sea water period, according to whether the ocean is frozen. Sitting on the lacquered silver wooden chair above the hall is a dignified and elegant young woman in a snow-white outfit, Marquis Elsa, the lord of the Ice and Snow Island. The Ice and Snow Island is very large, many times larger than many dukes' territories, but the population is not large, all concentrated on the relatively warmer south bank of the island. It is precisely because of this that the development of the territory or the island has great limitations, which is also because Elsa is only a marquis. After listening to her sister's report, Elsa raised her slender white right hand and rubbed her brow with her middle finger. She was very distressed and worried whether the civilians in her territory could survive until the sea ice melted next spring. Sister, can we sell the goldfish to the south? Elsa thought for a long time before she came up with such a solution. Anna thought about it and shook her head gently. Sister, it won't work this year. The first blizzard of this year is coming soon. The sea ships that transport the goldfish to the territories further south will not be able to return before the ocean freezes. Elsa listened to her sister's words and became more distressed about the current climate. If the sea ships could not transport the supplies back to the ice island before the sea surface froze, there would be no point in going out to sea. Elsa sighed, propped up her forehead and whispered, "What's the matter with the war on the continent? We can live a good life. Why fight a war when there is nothing to do?" There were only two sisters, Anna and Elsa, in the quiet hall. Elsa's whisper was heard by Anna, who walked up. Anna walked behind Elsa, stretched out a pair of beautiful hands that were no less beautiful than her sisters, gently placed them on Elsa's shoulders, and began to knead them rhythmically. "Sister, don't worry about the war on the mainland. It can't attack us anyway. If there are fewer fish, just buy less. Don't tire yourself out like this." Anna kneaded Elsa's shoulders and persuaded her softly. She really felt sorry for her sister. According to Anna's thoughts, their ice island can be what it is now, although many places are blessed by the deep sea cold fish in the nearby waters, but the island is not without other outputs, so there is no need to be so tired for some fishermen. Elsa patted the slender hand on her shoulder and said, Anna, our island is already remote. If it weren't for our family's concern for people's livelihood for generations, how could we two sisters be where we are today? I know you are doing this for my own good. You just need to say this here, and don't say it outside. Okay, big sister. Anna agreed helplessly. She had heard such words a lot anyway, and she knew that her sister valued the civilians in the territory very much, but she, Anna, was different. She valued her family, and she didn't want to be as tired as her sister every day. Okay, Anna, I know you are doing this for my own good. Elsa held the little hand on her shoulder, led Anna to her front, and took Anna's other hand, holding them together, staring into Anna's eyes and smiling gently. But we two sisters must guard the territory passed down by our father, and we can't slack off. There are also civilians, merchants, and nobles in the territory, who also need you to take care of them. Humph. Anna heard her sister's words, turned her head and snorted, and said unhappily, those noble merchants don't need you to take care of them. It's a good thing if they don't bother you one day. Elsa chuckled, looked at her dissatisfied sister, and didn't say much. There are some things that she, as the elder sister, just needs to know, so there is no need for another person to worry about it. Sister, this year, we can still let the sea ships go to the nearest port a few times, so that we can mint more silver coins and directly buy the items needed on the island. Anna remembered the purpose of her meeting Elsa, and looked at Elsa seriously. When Elsa heard the business, she frowned and thought for a while, then raised her head and ordered, okay, remember not to cast too many silver coins, just enough. Yes, elder sister. Anna also knew that too many silver coins could not be cast at one time. She knew how greedy the lords on the mainland were. If these greedy lords knew that their ice and snow island was rich in silver, they would not have a peaceful life in the future. If it weren't for the fact that trade with the mainland was not going well in recent years, Elsa would not want to use this very risky method. Unlike the territories south of the Barren River, the territories north of the Barren River still have silver coins as intermediate currencies, but the exchange rates and weights of each region are also different, so it is very difficult to be a cross-regional merchant north of the Barren River. Because the currencies cast by many powerful territories are different, cross-regional merchants need to clearly understand and calculate the exchange rates between various currencies, which is not a simple task. Anna, have you received any news recently? How come such a large-scale war suddenly broke out in the south of the continent? Aren't these lords afraid that other territories will cause trouble to them for violating the Continental Convention? After discussing the business, Elsa thought of the culprit who caused the decline in trade on the ice and snow island. She was very puzzled that such a war broke out so suddenly, and there was not even any sign. Sister, the recent returning fleet brought back this news. Anna heard Elsa's inquiry and thought about the news she got 2 days ago. However, Elsa was busy dealing with the issue of civilians on the island overwintering at that time, so she didn't report it to Elsa at the first time. When Elsa heard the news, she straightened up and immediately asked, "Is there news? What's going on, sister?" Anna recalled and replied, "I heard that there is a territory called Xiago in the south of the continent that was the first to start a war and occupied a basin. Not long after, other places also launched a war of annexation. Aren't they afraid that other territories will unite to attack?" Elsa was very surprised by these territories that launched the annexation war. Seeing Elsa's surprise, Anna shook her head in confusion and said, "I don't know about this. The people who came back didn't say anything, but it is said to be related to some system." Seeing that she couldn't get much information from Anna, Elsa didn't continue to ask. She just looked to the south and sighed. No one knew what she was sighing about. Maybe she was sighing for this hard and ugly world. Chapter 258, Arctic Fishing Boat. Just as the two sisters Elsa and Anna were discussing using their homemade silver coins to go to the nearest continent to exchange supplies for the islanders during the Ice Age, they did not know that what they were worried about was about to happen. Because there is an ice island in the Biang region The coastal territories on the mainland have developed over time, so offshore trade has also developed. As the ice and snow island has developed to the present, the lords of all generations also know that if this place full of ice and snow wants to develop, it must have people. If you want people, you must have conditions that can attract people to come. So the lords of the ice and snow island have paid great attention to people's livelihood. This is why Elsa does not want other lords on the mainland to ignore civilians. If the lords of the ice and snow island do not pay attention to people's livelihood, who will go to the ice and snow island in the cold land? This is not the world where Yang Song used to be. He was free to come for sightseeing. The natives of this world do not have so much leisure. Moreover, because the ice and snow island is an island, it is natural to pay attention to the ocean, so sea ships were built. Most of the ships on the ice and snow island are trade transport ships, and they are built with hardy wood that exists in Iceland. They can be regarded as the earliest force in this world to build ships. Of course, warships are indispensable, but the biggest difference between warships and ships on the ice and snow island, or in this world, is the different people they carry. Moreover, it is better to say that it is a slightly larger river ship than a sea ship. Simple sails, human powered oars, and no rudder. Only the oars can control the direction, and the weight and space of the transported materials are also very limited. Such a simple sea ship consumes and relies on manpower very much. If it were not for sailing in the near sea, it would be sailing with life, and even in the near sea, there are not a few ships destroyed by sudden storms. It is precisely because of such dangers that the natives of this world came up with a way of sailing together, using the number of fleets to reduce the harm of distress. In fact, whether it is the style of sea ships, the technology of sailing, or the method of avoiding danger in groups, they are all from the land. The navigation technology in this world is just a starting point. Ice and Snow Island is a place that Elsa cannot see. There is a sideline among the people, that is, pirates. In the past, there was an archipelago composed of many small islands a few hundred kilometers south of Ice and Snow Island, where many pirates hid. When the pirates reached their peak, they dared to gather together, to plunder coastal towns and harass castles, making the lords near the sea miserable. But because the ocean was not under the control of these lords, they could only let it go. But because they were too arrogant, they finally provoked the ancestor of pirates, Ice and Snow Island, and were led by the previous lord of Ice and Snow Island with more than 100 military and civilian warships and sea vessels to this archipelago for a one-sided encirclement and suppression. If it were not for the fact that this archipelago was full of small islands and had no value for development, the lord of Ice and Snow Island at that time would have occupied this place reasonably. Now more than 100 years have passed, and this archipelago is now full of pirates of all sizes, but these pirates no longer dare to be as arrogant as their predecessors and dare to plunder everywhere openly. It can only be said that where there is profit, there are vultures that eat carrion, and the more disorderly a place is, the more rampant the chaos is. The existence of offshore trade and the disorder at sea have provided pirates with soil for survival. Even though this is a high-risk profession, the profits gained after successful plundering have attracted many people who cannot survive to continue to do so. Christoph, hurry up. The ice age will come in a few days. We should take advantage of this period to catch more fish. A vicissitudes of life middle-aged man with a scar on his face shouted loudly to the young man paddling with both hands at the stern. Got it, Dad? Christoph responded loudly to the middle-aged man, who was about to cast a net at the bow, while struggling to operate the two oars on both sides of the fishing boat with both hands, so that the swaying fishing boat could reach the sea where the middle-aged man wanted to cast the net. The old man pointed to the front to Christoph behind him. Christoph immediately knew that was where the old man wanted to cast the net, and immediately used the last bit of his strength to row the fishing boat forward. With a cry of "We're here," Christoph stopped paddling, and let the fishing boat slide forward by inertia. He collapsed at the stern, letting his sweat drip into the water-stained fishing boat, and just greedily breathed in the moist sea breeze. Christoph watched his father dragging the fishing net, getting ready, and when the fishing boat slid to a certain position, he threw the fishing net towards the side in front of the fishing boat. Under his father's skillful movements, the fishing net unfolded in midair into a large perfect circular opening, and driven by the weight of the fishing net, it fell into the sea with a whoosh, splashing a little water. The father held the net line tightly, and under the drive of the fishing boat, the net line returned from the front to the bow. The father stood firm and lifted it hard, using both hands to quickly and alternately retract the net line. In just a few strokes, one end of the fishing net had been lifted above the sea surface. Hey! The father felt the movement of the fishing net in his hand and laughed, knowing that the net must have yielded a lot of catches. When the fishing net was completely lifted onto the fishing boat by the old man, Christophe looked at the silvery fat fish jumping and struggling in the fishing net, and said excitedly, "There are so many cold fish. There are several in this net. Yes, it's really lucky. Thank the gift of the sea god." The old man bowed to the sea devoutly, and Christophe also stood up and bowed to the sea, but his heart was not as devout as he appeared. Wow. Christophe opened the fishing net and saw that in addition to 4 or 5 cold fish, there were also some other fish and shrimps in the net. He said happily, "I can finally have a good meal tonight." Haha. The old man looked at the happy Christophe and laughed very happily, which made the old man explain the hard life of his family during this period. "Dad, how much do you think we can buy with these 5 cold fish? Will the ice sea period this year be less difficult?" Christophe was not young anymore, in his early 20s, but such a simple question made the old man touch the scar on his face. Dad didn't lose his focus for long, just a moment, so short that, if Christophe hadn't been staring at him, he wouldn't have even noticed it. "Dad?" Christophe called again. He still didn't know how Dad got the scar on his face. Even if he asked, Dad would just remain silent. Over time, even if Christophe knew what Dad was worried about, he got used to it. Dad squatted down and opened the storage cabin in the middle of the fishing boat. While putting the fish in the fishing net into the storage cabin, he replied, "These are just a few cold fish, enough to buy 200 or 300 kilograms of black beans. After counting the taxes to be paid to the Lord, there won't be much left. It's just enough for the 2 of us to eat during the ice age." "That's good, Dad. We also have leather clothes to keep warm. This year is much better than last year. Last year before the ice age, we only caught 3 cold fish, and we sold a lot of them because the price dropped." Christophe was scared when he thought about the days when the father and son lived frugally during the ice age last year. Yes, if the Lord hadn't been merciful and exempted the fishing tax, we probably wouldn't have been able to make it. The old man sighed and continued, "It's getting harder and harder to catch these cold fish." Chapter 259, The First Riot in the Arctic Ocean. "Dad, even if we catch some cold fish, it's still a problem if we can't sell them." Christophe seemed to have thought of something, and his excitement disappeared without a trace. He just lowered his head. Dad also thought of the increasingly depressed fish market in recent times, and he also lowered his head, but he didn't say anything, and no one knew what he was thinking. Christophe looked at his father, who was silent again, and asked, "Dad, tell me, have pirates been making trouble again recently?" Hearing Christophe's question, the old man raised his head and asked curiously, "Why do you think so? Is there any need to ask this?" Christophe looked as if it was a matter of course. "Except for pirates, why else can't the cold fish that the high-ranking lords on the mainland like to eat be sold now?" The old man didn't expect Christophe to be able to say such a well-reasoned statement, but the old man shook his head and said, "It shouldn't be pirates." "Why not pirates?" Christophe asked his father, a little unconvinced. The old man still shook his head, covered the storage cabin, stood up, walked to the bow, picked up the horizontal harpoon, put his hands together, and looked at the sun, and asked without turning his head, "If it's pirates, why didn't anyone mention it at the port?" That's because." Christophe was still unconvinced. He wanted to argue, but didn't know how to refute. In the end, he really didn't know what to say, and said with a stiff neck, "Anyway, it's because of pirates." "What do you know, kid?" The old man turned around with the harpoon in his hand, and walked to Christophe, handed the harpoon to him, sat at the stern, held the oars, and began to row. "Then what do you know, old man?" Christophe put down the harpoon, turned around and asked the old man who was rowing the boat, as if he would not lose face if he asked this question. Upon hearing this, the old man stopped rowing, as if he was angry and sad, which made Christophe a little uneasy. Just when Christophe secretly decided to apologize, the old man sighed deeply and said, if it was really a pirate, the price of cold fish would only increase. Not like now. It would be almost impossible to sell it, even if the price was reduced. Without waiting for Christophe's reaction, the old man seemed to recall and reminisce, and said to himself, pirates dare not touch the merchant ships of the ice and snow island. Christophe came back to his senses, and continued to ask, how did you know, old man? The old man just smiled at this question with his wrinkled old face, just buried his head in rowing, but did not say anything. On the way back, no matter how Christophe asked, the old man said nothing. When Christophe got tired of asking, he stopped asking, but he still kept this question in mind. The days on the ice and snow island are particularly short. When dusk approached, the fishing boats also docked. Have you heard? Clarendon encountered a large group of black ships when he went out to sea. You don't know? I heard that the black ships ignored him, as if something happened. I heard about this too. Those black ships hurriedly headed south. I guess they were going to a party. No, the annual black ship meeting hasn't even started yet. This is definitely not the reason. Christophe, who was carrying a wooden barrel, saw the fishermen gathered in groups of 3 or 5 in the port, chatting lively. He immediately handed the wooden barrel with fish to the old man, who caught up with the boat behind him, and shouted, Dad, I'll go see what's going on. The old man took the wooden barrel, held it and continued to walk towards home, while paying attention to the conversations of the fishermen on the road. Hey, Alf, you're back. How are you today? How much gift from the sea god? A familiar fisherman greeted the old man. The old man, Alf, put down the wooden barrel in his hand, and smiled naively at an acquaintance on the roadside. I'm lucky today. The sea god has blessed me with a few fish. So lucky? I'll try again tomorrow, hoping to get some fish. The familiar fisherman sighed at Alf's good luck, and seemed to have thought of something, and said to Alf mysteriously, I heard that Christopher encountered a large group of black ships when he went out to sea, and I don't know what it is. Alf, what do you think? I quit doing it a long time ago, and I haven't let Christopher get in touch with it. If you ask me now, I don't know. Alf picked up the wooden barrel and looked around. Seeing Christopher peeking around in the distance, he shouted loudly, Christoph, go back, it's dark. Waiting for Christopher to return to Alf in dissatisfaction, he said dissatisfiedly, Dad, I'm in my 20s, why are you still watching over me like this? How embarrassing it is for me. Christopher said so, but still honestly took the wooden barrel from his father's hand, holding it and followed behind Alf. When this ice age is over, you can take 2 cold fish and marry Ali from the next street. Alf didn't say much, but thought for a while, and said something that almost made Christopher drop the wooden barrel in his arms. No way. Dad, Ellie from the next street. I'm not young anymore, and Akiang, who's the same age as me, even has a kid next door, but Ellie and I are just friends, and I don't have any other ideas. After Christopher finished speaking, he whispered to himself, Ellie looks so fragile, I don't like her. What are you mumbling about? Alf turned around and glanced at Christopher, and without waiting for Christopher's answer, he continued, if there is no one, then there is no one. Anyway, Dad will not bother to care about it in the future. It's not that Alf has not found a partner for Christopher, but every time Christopher escaped with various excuses. After all, he is so old, and it is difficult for Alf to control him. After returning to his home a few streets away, Christopher followed Alf into the house with a wooden barrel in his arms. He put the barrel under the wall made of ice bricks, and was about to run out. Wait, you take care of the fish and shrimp tonight. I'll go to the street to take a look. Alf called out to Christopher, who was about to run out. Christopher looked at his father who was walking out of the house, and while opening the wooden barrel, he muttered, did you encounter a group of pirates soon? What's the big deal? I also know that Clarendon and those people have also been pirates. I'm not a child, how could I not know? Of course, Alf knew that some secrets could not be hidden from Christopher, but Alf still didn't want Christopher to follow the old path of these people. After all, Christopher cooked the fish and shrimp in a clay pot, and Alf returned home in time for dinner. As soon as he entered the door, he patted the snow on his body and said, I'll go out to sea again tomorrow, and I won't go out again in the future. What's wrong? The ice age is coming so soon. I remember there is still some time. Christopher handed Alf a bowl of hot seafood soup. You're right, the pirates are making a big move. Alf didn't drink the fish soup directly, but held it in his hands to warm his hands, walked to the fire pit and sat down, and said something to Christopher that surprised him. Christopher was surprised for a while, then asked, "What big move?" Alf took a sip of the fish soup that was very delicious without any seasoning, and then replied, "I don't know about that, but it's not peaceful. After fishing tomorrow, stay at home peacefully." This conclusion was drawn by Alf, based on his many years of experience. As for what experience it was, this was a past event that Alf never mentioned. Chapter 260, Pirates of the Arctic Ocean. The pirates that Christophe had been thinking about were gathering in the archipelago at this time. The archipelago about 300 kilometers south of the ice and snow island was called the Pirate Archipelago because of the long-term presence of pirates. The Pirate Archipelago is hundreds of kilometers away from the north. Although it snows in the sea here, the ocean will not freeze, and it is also 100 or 200 kilometers away from the coast of the mainland. With such a location, if the archipelago is not full of fragmented islands, even fresh water depends entirely on the weather, so there is no condition for settlement at all. Otherwise the Lord of the Ice and Snow Island should have occupied this place. It is precisely because of this that this place has become a happy nest for pirates. There is no need to worry about someone occupying it. It is far enough away from the big forces, and it is not far or close to the surrounding waterways, so it is convenient to run away immediately after plundering. Even if there is a big force like the Ice and Snow Island to encircle and suppress, as long as the news is known in advance, the pirates can avoid the fate of being wiped out at once by fleeing with the broken ships. After the wind blows, they will gather here again. Because of the existence of pirates, merchants who are not afraid of death and only care about profit will definitely come. Pirates must settle accounts after successful robbery, so these merchants and pirates can be said to hit it off. In fact, the people behind many merchants and pirates are those high-ranking dignitaries, and the spontaneous participation of the people on the Ice and Snow Island is unique. This may be the saying that poor mountains and bad waters produce unruly people. Corey, the annual pirate gathering is still time. What do you, Mark and Larry think? A pirate leader who had just arrived at the archipelago boarded the largest island in the middle of the archipelago and couldn't wait to shout at Corey, who was standing not far from the coast. "Andy, what's the hurry? When everyone is here, the three of us will tell you the reason for calling you together." Corey looks very ordinary and looks like a middle-aged fisherman who fishes at sea all year round. Andy walked up the rugged coast and came to Corey and his companions. He asked with a little curiosity, a little expectation, and a little excitement, "Is there a big fish that you can't eat?" Pirates sometimes gather together because the target of the robbery is strong, but because there are conflicts among pirates, such situations are rare, which is why Andy asked this question. I said, "We will tell you when everyone is here." Corey turned and looked at Andy, looking at the pirates of all sizes gathered on the island. There were more than 1,000 people. Andy saw Corey's firm look and smiled indifferently. Andy thought that the other party was afraid that the news would be leaked if he informed them in advance. Such situations have happened before. None of these pirates dared to be sure who was the hidden pawn of other forces, although they were not worth mentioning and could be abandoned at any time. A few hours later, when the sky got darker, a light snow suddenly fell from the sky. Corey looked at a fleet appearing on the sea, stood up from the campfire and said, "Everyone is here." After the fleet docked, a strong man with a full beard came over. Andy greeted him loudly from a distance. "Not, you are the last one to come." "Haha, Andy, you haven't been fed to the fish yet." Annette laughed and replied, "You are not dead yet. How could I, Andy, die before you?" Andy walked up and handed Annette a wine pot. Annette drank a few big gulps from the wine pot, exhaled a breath of wine, felt his body warming up quickly, and returned the wine pot to Andy and said, "This damn weather, I'm freezing to death." Then looking around, Annette asked puzzledly, "Those who play in the snow didn't come?" Annette was talking about the people from the Ice and Snow Island. Because the Ice and Snow Island is covered with ice and snow all year round, the civilians are tough and good at water battles. When they go out to do side jobs, they are very united. They are a group of half thieves and half civilians, and other pirates call them snow playing people. It has nothing to do with them. Before Corey said anything, Larry on the side said it first. When Andy and Anot were confused, Mark took over and said, why not say that our big fish this time are those snow playing people? When Andy heard that the target this time was the ice and snow island, he was surprised and blurted out, are you crazy? I'll be frank. Corey looked at a few people, then walked to a conspicuous place and said loudly to all the pirates present, everyone, let me tell you the purpose of calling everyone here this time. The conversation between Corey and the other 5 had long been watched by the other pirates, but because of the strength of the pirates, the others were not qualified to come forward to talk, and they gathered together to chat, eat and drink. At this time, seeing that Corey was about to announce the target, they all stopped talking, their hands, and their mouths, and quietly waited for Corey's next words. Under the dark sky, piles of bonfires provided a ray of light and warmth to the island. Do you know? Corey saw that everyone was quiet and said loudly, there are silver mines on Ice Island. What? Silver mines? Even if there are silver mines, we can't take them away. The people on Ice Island are not easy to mess with. With Corey's words, the expected noise boiled. The pirates were shocked at first, then happy, and finally helpless. Just as these pirates said, no matter how remote the ice island is, it is a marquisate, and it is not something that these small pirates can afford to provoke. Everyone, be quiet, be quiet. Corey appeased the noisy pirates, and then said, I know that the people on Ice Island are not easy to mess with, but don't you want the shiny silver coins? I want them, but you have to be alive to get them. And he shouted loudly in the crowd. In his opinion, Corey and his people were really crazy. They dared to die for money. Although Andy was also a pirate who put his head on his belt to make money, he was not to the point of going, even though he knew he was going to die. I know it's stupid to attack the ice island. It would be fine if it was just us, but this time it's not just us. It's the nobles on the mainland who want to attack the ice island. We are just taking advantage of the chaos to get something for free. After Andy learned the news, his first reaction was to pass the news back because he hadn't received any news from the people behind him, so it was difficult for him to make a decision alone. Corey's words finally answered Andy's doubts. It turned out that the news that there was a silver mine on the ice island was known to these lords, which led to this gathering of these pirates. But Andy had a new question, that is, why did these lords tell this news to these pirates? He knew that the 5 of them were supported by various forces on land. Could it be? Andy looked at the many pirates present, thinking. Chapter 261, Dark Clouds in the Arctic Ocean. After the pirates knew that they were just picking up bargains, they were very willing to fight for it. Even if the big heads were taken by those nobles, they still had to have some soup, right? With the power of the ice and snow island, even if they didn't get the shiny silver coins, they could still rob ships and women. Maybe they would get lucky and find a treasure house in the chaos, and then they would get rich. With this money, who would still be willing to be a pirate? Wouldn't it be good to go back to their hometown, to buy a manor and a group of slaves, and live an upper class life? While these pirates were still fantasizing about a better life in the future, the leaders of the 5 big pirates all knew that they were just cannon fodder to test the ice and snow island. A few days later, after Andy learned that someone behind him asked him to participate, he agreed with Corey and others on the day of action together, and then reported the date of the action to the forces behind them. The pirates and the territories on the mainland that wanted to attack the ice and snow island were ready, but Elsa on the ice and snow island was unaware of this. She was still worrying about the territory this year. Before the operation, in a harbor on the coast of the mainland, Lord Harry was looking at the more than 30 warships gathered outside the harbor, feeling very proud. Lord, is this really a good idea? The warships of the ice and snow island are more than 100? The Tribune beside him said worriedly. Baron, your information is from more than 100 years ago, right? The Lord of the Ice and Snow Island is just a little girl now. What are you afraid of? The Knight Commander refuted the Tribune's question. He fully supported the expedition to the Ice and Snow Island, and this time he would lead the team himself. Knight Commander, what you said is right. Lord Harry laughed and said, there are silver mines on the Ice Island. When I occupy the ice island, you will definitely benefit from it. My lord, that's right. The treasurer immediately flattered him. I heard that the two sisters on the ice island are rare beauties. Your Excellency Knight Commander, you must bring them back together this time, to present them to my lord. I like what you said. Harry couldn't help but feel warm when he thought of the reputation of the two sisters Elsa and Anna. He continued, the territories in the south are fighting fiercely. What does it matter if I occupy an island this time? Harry only said half of what he thought in his heart. The other half was that he wanted to take this opportunity to expand his power. He also wanted to try to be the king of a country. Besides, this time it's not just my territory that wants to take over the ice island. There are so many territories along the coast, and there are two with me. This time the ice island is really finished. Harry looked confident, which made the treasurer flatter him in time. The Knight Commander automatically ignored the flattery of the treasurer and reported to Harry, my lord, the warships are ready. Please give the order to set sail. Harry received the report, immediately waved his hand and ordered loudly, set out. I obey the order. The Knight Commander saluted Harry first, turned around and boarded a warship in the port, and ordered the fleet loudly, set out. Following the order, more than 30 ships raised their sails and rowed their oars to the northeast amid the sound of various horns. At the same time, in the pirate islands, many pirates, led by the 5 major pirate groups, also sailed to the north. Snowflakes floated under the gloomy clouds, bringing a cool breeze to the sea area, but the fiery hearts of many profit seekers sailing on the sea could not be cooled down. Dad, come out quickly. There is a team of merchant ships outside to buy cold fish. Christophe urged Alf in the house. Alf came out of the house carrying a wooden barrel, walking slowly and calmly, saying, why are you in such a hurry? The merchant ship won't be able to escape for a while. Dad. Christopher was helpless with Alf, thinking how come this man has become so boring when he gets old. He didn't want to be as slow as Alf when he gets old. When Christopher and his father came to the dock with the 2 cold fish they had recently caught, fishermen with large and small wooden barrels were everywhere. This situation is not common recently. What? Don't want it anymore? Are you leaving now? Christopher and his father were still walking forward when they heard a commotion coming from the front, which made them very confused. After figuring out what was going on, Christophe complained to Alf, Dad, you didn't believe me when I told you to hurry up. Now we don't want the merchant ship anymore and we are leaving. He grabbed the wooden barrel from Alf's hand, squeezed forward with the people beside him, and shouted, wait a minute, my cold fish was caught recently and is very fresh. Buy my fish before you leave. But the merchant fleet raised the sails, paddled, and left without paying any attention. After Christophe looked at the fleet that was gradually going away and showed no signs of returning, he turned around and found Alf in the crowd behind him. He didn't say much, but he didn't have the energy he had before. Let's go, Dad. Christophe walked a distance and saw Alf behind him still standing there and not catching up, so he shouted loudly. But Alf seemed not to hear it and still stood there without moving. Christophe turned around and walked to Alf's side and looked at him in confusion. But Alf looked at the direction where the merchant fleet was going away with a serious face, and his frowning look surprised Christophe very much. What's wrong, Dad? I'm a little scared of you. Christopher pushed Alf carefully. Alf seemed to have just come back to his senses. He looked at Christopher with a puzzled look and said, what's wrong with you? Dad, I should be the one asking you this. Christopher was relieved when he heard this. He walked back with the wooden bucket and said, Dad, I thought you were standing there frozen, motionless. What are you talking about, Dad? I'm just old and dazed for a while, and I scared you. If Dad is really gone in the future, you will cry to death. Dad said this, which made Christopher feel a little abnormal. Christopher hurriedly said, Dad, you can't say this. It's okay if I'm wrong. Although he didn't know where he was wrong. The reason why Alf said this was because he was aware that he was very uneasy in his heart, but after thinking about it for a long time, he didn't know where this uneasiness came from. It was certain that Alf couldn't figure it out, because from his perspective, that was all the information he had. His uneasiness came from his very rare battlefield intuition. Chapter 262, First Battle in the Arctic Ocean. Sister, the merchant ships haven't brought back enough things recently. Anna looked at Elsa with some worry. She was not worried about whether the civilians in the territory had enough supplies, but about Elsa's fatigue. As expected, Elsa frowned and looked at Anna and asked, Anna, what's wrong? Didn't you ask the merchant ships to bring enough silver coins? Sister, it's not about money. I heard from the merchants who came back that they have money, but can't spend it. Anna answered Elsa's question, thinking of the strange expression on the merchant's face when he reported to her. They have money, but can't spend it? That's strange. Did the merchant say what happened? Elsa frowned even tighter. Anna thought about the merchant's report to her and replied to Elsa, Sister, I heard from the merchants that the lords on the continent seem to be storing food for the winter and have no extra to sell. After hearing Anna's answer, Elsa snorted and said angrily, what do you mean by storing food for the winter? I think this is just an excuse. I don't know what these people are thinking. Sister, what should we do if there is not enough food? Anna hesitated for a moment and finally asked this question. In fact, Anna didn't want to ask. She didn't want to add trouble to her sister, but she knew that Elsa would definitely notice it. It was just a matter of time. Alas, send out the food in the castle. Elsa waved her hand to stop what Anna wanted to say and sighed. Leave enough for our sisters this year and send out the rest. Yes, sister. Anna saw Elsa's firm eyes and knew that no matter how much she persuaded, it would be useless, so she could only sigh secretly. Just as Anna was about to leave, a guard suddenly rushed in from outside the hall. My lord, a large number of ships were found coming from the west. A large number of ships. Are they merchant ships? How many are there? Elsa felt very strange when she learned that a large number of ships were coming at this time, but she still held a glimmer of hope. The guard replied respectfully, My lord, they are not merchant ships. According to the fishermen who escaped back, they are all warships, more than 30 of them. Elsa was about to speak when another guard ran in from outside the door. My lord, a large number of warships were found in the southwest. My lord, a large number of pirates were found in the south. Another guard ran into the hall. Elsa looked at the 3 guards kneeling in a row in the hall, a little overwhelmed, and didn't know how to respond for a moment. Anna saw Elsa panicking, so she asked the guards one after another, how many warships are there in the southwest? How many pirate ships are there? My dear, we found 40 to 50 warships in the southwest. There are also 40 to 50 pirate ships in the south. The guard's answers surprised Anna. If there were only 50 to 60 warships coming from the west, the ice and snow island could still deal with them, but there were more than 100 warships from the 3 directions, which made Anna panic. I know, you guys go out first. Anna looked at Elsa, who was silent, and after all the guards went out, she hurriedly said, Sister, more than 100 warships. What should we do? Elsa looked at the panicked Anna, but she calmed down instead. She hurriedly said to Anna, Anna, don't worry, go and gather the warships, whether they are fishing boats or merchant ships. Use them all. What about the soldiers? Even if there are ships, there are not so many soldiers. Anna saw Elsa calm down, took a few deep breaths, and calmed down. Elsa frowned and thought for a while and said, recruit the civilians. I believe that at this time, the civilians will definitely stand up to defend their homes. Yes, sister. Anna immediately accepted the order and said, I also believe that the civilians are willing to stand up to defend their homes. Anna has made up her mind that no matter whether the civilians are willing or not, they must be willing at this time. In just a few hours, Alf's ominous premonition came true. Seeing the chaotic streets from the dock, Alf knew that it was not good when he heard that a large number of enemies were coming to attack. Not long after, a large number of soldiers appeared on the street and began to read the order of the Lord, ordering all fishing boats and merchant ships to be confiscated, and young and strong civilians to be conscripted to go to meet the enemy to defend their homes. Not long after the order was read, the soldiers dispersed and began to recruit civilians from house to house. A soldier with a few familiar fishermen waved to Alf and Christoph and said, you two are fishermen. You have been recruited. Follow me. The two looked at each other without saying much, picked up the harpoon, and followed the soldier. Alf said to a familiar fisherman, Cleland, you are here too? It's Alf and Christoph. Cleland greeted the two and stopped talking, just followed the soldier to the next one. Seeing that the number of people behind him was almost enough, the soldier led nearly 20 fishermen behind him to the dock and pointed to a sea ship and said, "All get on board." Knight Commander Bernie sent someone to ask these warships what they are doing on our ice and snow island. Elsa ordered the old Knight Commander, who followed behind him. Near the coast of Ice and Snow Island, the two armies faced each other. The Ice and Snow Island side also gathered more than 100 large and small ships, facing the 5 groups of warships with their backs to the Ice and Snow Island and guarding them tightly. Yes, Lord. Knight Commander Bernie was the Knight Commander when the father of the two sisters Elsa and Anna was the Lord, and he has always been loyal to the Arnold family. Knight Commander Bernie sent 5 small boats to inquire, but the news brought back by the small boats made Elsa lose the last bit of luck. "Sister, I didn't expect these people to really set their eyes on the silver mine on our island." Anna looked at the warships on the opposite side with a face full of resentment. "Lord, as early as when Lord Arnold was here, these people have been paying attention to the Ice and Snow Island, but because of Lord Arnold and the restrictions of the convention, they dare not act." Knight Commander Bernie slowly told some past events. "Do you think we two sisters are easy to bully?" Elsa was so angry that she wanted to laugh. Although she knew that these territories dared to pay attention to the Ice and Snow Island mostly because the current Continental Convention had expired, she was still very angry. Knight Commander Bernie, prepare for war. Seeing the warships on the opposite side began to charge, Elsa gave the order to prepare for battle with a cold face. "Yes, Lord." Knight Commander Bernie gave the order to the fleet to prepare for battle. After Bernie gave the order, seeing that there was still some time, he suggested, "Lord, Second Miss, you should go back to the castle. It is very dangerous on the sea." "No, Knight Commander Bernie, if the naval battle fails, where will we two sisters stay without being in danger?" Elsa shook her head gently, knowing the other party's concerns, and said, "You just need to command. Don't worry about us two sisters. Anyway, the other party dare not do anything to me as a lord." Elsa's second sentence was purely self-consolation. Since the war in the south, there have been countless lords and dignitaries who died accidentally in the war over the years. But the first sentence was very reasonable. If the naval battle failed, the castle alone could not stop the other party from mobilizing troops. Bernie also knew this. After persuading her for a few words, he stopped caring about Elsa and her two sisters and concentrated on commanding the fleet to welcome the next battle. Chapter 263, Battle of the Arctic Ocean. Outside the ocean, more than 100 warships were divided into 5 parts and pressed forward together. The 6th part was the pirates, who watched from afar in the west and did not rush up directly. Bernie looked at these warships and did not divide his troops to attack them separately. Instead, he concentrated all his strength in his hands to prevent the attack from the opposite side. Kill, there are silver coins for attacking the Ice and Snow Island. This lord has decided to attack the Ice and Snow Island and allow soldiers to plunder for 3 days. With the orders or encouragements of different lords, the fleet quickly approached the fleet of the Ice and Snow Island under the efforts of the soldiers. The fleets of the 5 lords attacked one place each. It was obvious that they had discussed in advance, so that the people of the Ice and Snow Island had no chance to defeat them one by one. Moreover, the pirates were watching from the side, forcing the people of the Ice and Snow Island to devote some of their energy to the pirates, which was also one of the goals the other party wanted to achieve. "Kristoff, follow me closely. Don't run around. Don't panic. Dad will protect you." Alf looked at the very nervous Kristoff, and while keeping a close eye on the approaching warships in front, he urgently told Kristoff 2 words. The battle came too quickly, and before they could react, they were called up to the battlefield. It was only a few hours, and now they were already on the battlefield, with no room to retreat. Fortunately, their fleet formed by fishermen was in the second echelon, and they would not engage in close combat with the other side at the first moment of the battle, so Alf secretly hoped that the army in front could resist. "Dad, what's going on? Why are we going to fight?" Kristoff's hand holding the harpoon couldn't help but tighten, letting his sweaty hands hold the harpoon tightly in his hands. "I don't know, but when the battle starts later, you have to follow me closely." No matter what, it's important to save your life. Alf whispered to Kristoff again, fearing that Kristoff would go up and fight with others in an impulse. Kristoff hummed nervously and nodded quickly. He looked at the enemy getting closer and closer and became more and more nervous and afraid. Don't be afraid. Dad will protect you. Alf had no choice but to comfort Kristoff again and again and teach him some battlefield points. Shoot. Shoot. At almost the same time, both fleets issued orders to shoot arrows. A rain of arrows made the soldiers of both sides fall down and fell into the sea with screams, adding a touch of scarlet to the original sea water. Whether it was the attacking side or the defending side, the commanders of both sides did not order the rockets to be fired. The attacking side relied on its strong military strength and did not need to set fire to attack. After all, these ships would be their own spoils after victory. As for the casualties of the soldiers, as long as they won, it would be just a small problem. The defending side did not set fire because the attacking side's ships were approaching quickly. Once the ships were set on fire, the opponent's ships rushed over. Wouldn't this be setting themselves on fire? Quickly release the arrows. Quickly release the arrows. Don't let the enemy rush over. An officer on the defensive side gave orders to his men with a ferocious look. An arrow fell from the sky and shot into the officer's face. After an instinctive scream, he covered his face and fell off the side of the ship weakly, becoming a floating corpse on the sea. Because it was a naval battle, no one dared to wear armor. If you accidentally fell into the sea, you would be courting death and no one could save you. As long as you don't wear armor, even if you fall into the sea, you can still get a chance to be rescued by relying on your water skills. Even knights and officers who have the conditions to wear armor would rather give up the heavy armor and fight for some damage to fight for a chance to survive. After several rounds of arrow rain, after leaving a trail of corpses, the attacking warships finally collided with the defense fleet of the Ice and Snow Island. Bang bang bang. In a collision, whether it was the attacking or defending side, the violently shaking ships caused some unstable soldiers to fall off the ships and fall into the sea. Kill. The attacking soldiers put down their oars, picked up their weapons, set up wooden boards, jumped over the side of the ship, and rushed into the boats that were waiting for them on the Ice and Snow Island. The first wave of attacking soldiers was quickly consumed in a fierce battle, and also took away the lives of a large number of defending soldiers. However, the attacking warship soldiers continued to rush up from the rear and joined the offensive sequence, leaving the soldiers of the Ice and Snow Island no peace. Fortunately, the soldiers of the Ice and Snow Island were on the defensive side and had made sufficient preparations so that the enemy could not break through for a while. But it was only for a while. After all, the number of soldiers on the Ice and Snow Island was too small, or more accurately, too few regular soldiers who had been trained. After all, human power is limited. As the soldiers in the front consumed each other, the conscripted fishermen in the back also began to intervene in the battle. At this moment, under the sea, the floating corpses had been stacked up in several layers, and the seawater was also dyed red with blood. Under the deep sea, that was invisible to the two sides fighting on the sea surface, groups of fish that loved to eat flesh and blood were gathering quickly to join this rare feast. A large warship can carry 100 soldiers, and a smaller one can carry dozens. Most of the more than 100 warships are large warships that can sail on the sea. In other words, not counting the pirates, the 5 attacking parties alone have more than 10,000 people. The number of defenders is not small at all, but most of them are fishermen who have just been recruited. Their combat power is limited, and they can't be used as regular soldiers at all. When Anna recruited civilians, she made a decision that she didn't know why she made, that is, only recruit fishermen to go to sea to fight, and ordinary civilians defend the harbor and islands. This may be a little struggle of Anna's subconscious, but it is precisely because of this order that the fisherman who had no hope for Knight Commander Bernie fought a victory that surprised him. I didn't expect these fishermen to have some combat power. Bernie didn't know who he said this to. It was more like talking to himself. Knight Commander Bernie looked at the chaotic battlefield at sea. He couldn't issue any orders at the moment and could only leave it to fate, but he could see that even with the fishermen, which was an excellent performance, the advantage of the battlefield was still completely on the enemy's side. Knight Commander Bernie came to Elsa and reported to her in despair, "I have failed. Please retreat, Lord." "Retreat? Where can we retreat to?" Elsa smiled miserably and said, "It would be better to die on the sea. I'm ashamed of my father's trust in me. Not only did I not make the ice island richer, but now I have lost the ice island in my hands." After saying this, Elsa looked at her sister who was holding her hand tightly and asked softly, "Anna, are you afraid of death?" "No, sister." Anna held Elsa's little hand tightly. Although she was trembling, her tone was extremely firm. "Well." Elsa seemed to have made a decision. Looking at the fewer and fewer soldiers on her side, she ordered, "Knight Commander, set fire." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Ice and Fire. Alf held the harpoon, looked at the enemy who broke through the front line, turned his head, and ordered Christophe for the third time in a serious manner, "Follow me." Christophe nodded quickly and swallowed his saliva. At this time, they had no way out. "Kill." An enemy soldier jumped over the side of the ship, shouted and raised his battle axe to chop down the old and weak in front of him. Alf pulled Christophe to the side and stepped back. The enemy's axe suddenly chopped into the deck and could not be pulled out for a long time. Alf took the opportunity to step forward and stabbed the enemy's body with the harpoon. "Ah!" Christophe looked at the enemy soldier who screamed, collapsed to the ground, and shed a lot of blood. He couldn't help but tremble all over. Alf didn't care about the harpoon inserted into the enemy's body. Looking at the increasing number of enemy soldiers in front of him, he pulled up the enemy's battle axe with force and prepared for the next fight. Christophe looked at his extremely skilled father in surprise. Although he had many questions to ask, he also knew that now was not the time. "Dad, be careful." Christopher saw Alf chop down an enemy soldier with a battle axe and then block the attack of another enemy soldier. He saw another enemy soldier next to him holding a weapon to attack Alf. Seeing that Alf was about to die, Christopher couldn't help but yelled and rushed towards the enemy soldier with the harpoon. But because of his shouting, the enemy soldier saw him. When Christopher rushed to the enemy soldier raised his foot and kicked him, and immediately kicked Christopher to the ground. The enemy soldier raised his weapon with a hideous face, ready to attack Christopher who was lying on the ground groaning in pain. Alf saw that Christopher was in danger to save him. In an emergency, Alf kicked his opponent down and swung an axe at the unprepared enemy soldier. The spurting blood splashed on the face of Christopher who closed his eyes and waited for death. When Christophe saw the enemy attacking him, he closed his eyes in fear. After a while, he did not feel any pain, but felt a warmth on his face. He opened his eyes and found that the enemy soldier was lying at his feet. Just when he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, he suddenly saw an enemy soldier slashing Alf's back with a knife. "Dad!" Christophe screamed in fear, but it was too late. Seeing his father limp on the ground, he raised the harpoon and rushed into the enemy's arms and thrust the harpoon into the opponent's chest. Looking at his father lying on the ground and twitching from time to time, Christophe burst into tears. He knelt on the deck of the ship and cried bitterly, regardless of the enemies who were still rushing behind him. Fortunately, there were other fishermen fighting around him. Otherwise, with Christophe's defenseless appearance, he would not know how he died. Before Christophe could cry twice, the body of a fisherman on the same boat fell on his back, which made him wake up instantly. It sounds long, but in fact, this incident took only a minute. The fierce battle left no extra time for sadness. "Ah, I'll fight you." Christophe picked up his father's battle axe, stood up and was about to fight the enemy. A series of set fire orders came from a distance, and the warship in front of Christophe was also ignited a moment later. The roaring flames forced Christophe, who was about to fight, back. He looked at the enemy soldiers who were gradually twisted and fell to the ground in the flames, and he felt a little better. Retreat quickly, the fire is coming." The soldiers behind him gave the order to retreat, and Christophe also retreated to the next ship with the surviving fisherman. Looking at the sea ship carrying his father burning in the flames, Christophe couldn't help but fall on the ship and burst into tears again. Knight Captain, set fire. Elsa gave an order to Knight Captain Bernie beside him. Yes, Lord. Knight Commander Bernie accepted the order and ordered the soldiers, light the fire. The soldiers immediately ignited the pre-prepared ships and used the flames to block the enemy's attack. However, this method is a lose-lose method. Ice and Snow Island will not use it unless it is absolutely necessary. But because this method is used at this time, it means that the current situation has reached the last moment. Ah. Help. The fire is coming. Jump off the ship quickly. Too late. Help. As the flames spread, the connected ships were ignited one by one, causing the soldiers on the ships, whether they were enemies or friends, to burn together and become walking torches. Even if a soldier jumped into the sea, he would die due to the high temperature and lack of oxygen, unless he could dive into the sea and hold his breath and swim to a safe place. But there were only a few such people, and there was nothing in the sea. The soldiers on the ship that were set on fire were panicking and running around, which made the flames spread faster, causing some of the ships behind that were not set on fire to quickly move away. However, how could they leave quickly at the moment? Only the last part of the ships that were not blocked could escape. The same was true for the large and small ships on the Ice and Snow Island side, but because of advanced preparation, the losses were far less than those of the enemy. Only some of the ships in the front were set on fire and perished together with the enemy. Most of the elite forces of the Ice and Snow Island were consumed in the confrontation. Otherwise the final plan would not have been implemented. Fishermen alone could not defend the Ice and Snow Island. If compared in terms of the number of ships, the losses of the Ice and Snow Island were far greater than those of the 5 territories on the opposite side. But the losses of the other side were warships, which were completely incomparable. It was not that Elsa did not want to order the fire in advance, but because setting the fire in advance would allow the enemy to be prepared and would not achieve a current effect at all. And war is so cruel, whether it is against the enemy or oneself, it is the same. There is no war without death. Retreat. The fleet commanders of the 5 territories basically issued the order to retreat one after another. The people of Ice and Snow Island are really ruthless. Among the pirates, who were watching from afar and preparing to take advantage of the chaos to rob, Andy looked at the sea of fire in the distance and clicked his tongue. Corey looked at the remaining warships of the 5 territories and all retreated. He didn't know what he was thinking. He nodded and said, "Let's go too." After receiving the information that the enemy had left, Knight Commander Bernie calmly reported to Elsa, "My lord, the enemy and the pirates have all retreated." Ah. Elsa sighed. She also saw the enemy leave and said, "We are going back. Please trouble Knight Commander Bernie to clean up the mess here. This is what I should do." Knight Commander Bernie bowed slightly and asked the guards to send Elsa and Anna back to the castle. A sudden attack ended in a sea of fire, and while repelling the enemy's attack, it also caused heavy losses. Chapter 265. The Frozen Ocean. After dusk that day, the ships near the sea continued to burn with thunder in the distance, which made the people of the Ice Island unable to help but take a few more glances. Knight Commander Bernie reported the losses of the Ice Island to Elsa in the castle. "My lord, our army has lost more than 70 ships, more than 5,000 elite soldiers, and more than 3,000 fishermen." The aftermath of the battlefield did not require much effort, just towing the unburned ships away and rescuing some soldiers who fell into the water. On the contrary, Anna had more aftermath work on the other side of the shore: condolences to civilians, treatment of the wounded, and only a small amount of food as compensation. After all, the supplies on the Ice Island are very scarce. Elsa heard Bernie's report and nodded. This loss was the most severe one in the past 100 years for the Ice Island. Elsa asked, "How much did the enemy lose?" Knight Commander Bernie thought for a moment and replied, "My lord, based on the number of the enemy's retreating warships, the enemy lost more than 70 warships in total, and the number of enemy soldiers lost is estimated to be about 8,000. This is really a battle that hurts both sides." Elsa thought to herself. Although she was a little different from other lords and paid much attention to people's livelihood, she was not a soft-hearted person. Elsa had already prepared for the losses after the war. No matter how much she paid attention to people's livelihood, she knew that she had to protect the territory, otherwise she would not order the conscription of civilians. But after this time, no one should dare to pay attention to the ice and snow island. Anna was very happy in the hall. Although there were great losses this time, at least they won. Anna is right, we won this battle. Elsa knew that now was not the time to be lonely, but to celebrate this victory and reward the heroes. My lord, I'm worried that the enemy will not accept defeat this time and will come back. We should prepare in advance. Knight Commander Bernie made a suggestion when everyone was celebrating happily. When Elsa heard this, she immediately restrained her smile, thought seriously for a moment, and said, the Knight Commander is right. Most of the losses of the 5 lords this time were in warships, and the loss of soldiers is not worth mentioning. We should prepare in advance. The total force of the 5 territories that came to attack was only more than 10,000 people. On average, each territory had only more than 2,000 people. This number of people would not be a big deal for even the smallest territories, not to mention that they were not completely wiped out. However, the construction of warships takes time. A large warship that can carry 100 soldiers is not easy to build. Of course, if the standard is lowered to a fishing boat level sea ship, it is easy to collect hundreds of ships from the people, but such ships are not very useful and can only transport soldiers. After realizing the problem, Elsa immediately asked, Captain Bernie, how many ships are available on the island? My lord, there are less than 100 ships that can still fight on the island. Bernie's serious expression and truthful report let Elsa know that the current situation is not very good. The ships that Bernie said can fight are not those small fishing boats that can only fish along the coast, but at least merchant ships or large fishing boats that can carry dozens of people. Alas. Elsa sighed in her heart, thinking that there were more than 100 large warships on the ice and snow island at the beginning, but more than 100 years have passed. Now, let alone the number of large warships, there are less than 100 warships that can be used in the entire territory. Although the ice and snow island did not become what it is now in her hands, Elsa still felt guilty about her ancestors. Use these ships to recruit soldiers. It's better to have them than not. Elsa waved her hand tiredly and asked Captain Bernie to go and recruit soldiers. After the meeting, Elsa and Anna returned to the room. Anna rubbed Elsa's shoulders from behind and comforted her. Sister, the enemy may not come back immediately. You don't have to work so hard. Anna, sister knows, but it's better to prepare one day earlier. Elsa closed her eyes and enjoyed Anna's massage. She whispered, sister is afraid that the ice island will be lost in your hands. Anna solemnly promised, sister, no matter what, I will accompany you. Besides, sister, we are about to enter the ice sea period. Even if the enemy wants to attack us, they have to wait until the sea melts next year. We still have time. Anna saw that Elsa did not relax at all, and a flash of inspiration came to her. She said what she thought to comfort Elsa. Yes, how could I forget this? When Elsa heard it, she sat up straight, then immediately relaxed her body and smiled easily. Anna was very happy to see that Elsa's body really relaxed and secretly complacent with her own wit. The location of the ice and snow island is very far to the north, and it snows all year round. Although the freezing of the ocean has completely cut off the external communication of the ice and snow island, the residents of the island had nothing to do at this time in the past, and could only eat the stored food. But now the ice and snow island needs to rely on the bad climate that they used to hate to defend the island, which makes Elsa feel for the first time that the ice and snow island has such a climate. Sometimes it is not necessarily a bad thing. After a few days, the cold wind that has been uninterrupted for a year has stopped, and the sky is deep and dark, as if the sky is about to fall. The residents living on the ice and snow island know that this is just the prelude to a blizzard. The cold wind has been howling for more than half a year and suddenly stopped, which made the residents of the island a little uncomfortable. Whether they are powerful or civilians, they all closed their doors and stayed at home, waiting for the arrival of the first blizzard of this year. When night fell that day, the temperature dropped suddenly and the cold wind howled again. Accompanied by the heavy snow falling from the sky, the sea surface was also slowly freezing bit by bit. Sister, can you feel relieved now? Anna and Elsa stood on the sea view balcony on the second floor of the castle. Anna put a coat on Elsa while feeling the sudden chill. Elsa took off the leather gloves on her right hand, stretched out her white jade hand to catch a few falling snowflakes. felt the coldness of her palm, smiled with relief, and the momentary charm made the dark night seem to have a glimmer of light, and Anna, who was waiting by her side, lost her mind for a moment. "Let's go, it's cold outside." Elsa turned around and returned to the room with unusual ease, so that Anna didn't say the words she was going to persuade. Although Elsa knew that the ice and snow island would not be attacked again this year because of Anna's comfort some time ago, she could not really feel relieved as long as the sea on the ice and snow island did not freeze. At this moment, although the lives of the residents of the ice and snow island were poor, they were not in danger of life. In this chaotic era, this was a rare happiness. Chapter 266, Arctic Ocean Island Scenery. After a night, the ice and snow island lived up to its name. Except for the sky, the whole island was all white. In the clean world, with a creak, the sound of the wooden door opening broke the pure color world. Inside the wooden door that opened inward, a gray shadow appeared in front of the snow. He used his hands to block the dazzling snow light that he suddenly saw, shook his body, turned back to the house, picked up the tools, and began to clean the snow in front of the house. "Christoph, why are you up so early today?" After a while, the neighbors also opened their doors and cleaned the snow in front of their houses. After the battle some time ago, Christopher said goodbye to his only relative. In the midst of sadness, he returned to reality and worked hard for the next life. He knew long ago that he was not his father's biological child, but Alf's adopted son. When he asked the neighbors, he learned that Alf came to the ice and snow island to settle down more than 10 years ago. However, because of the kindness of the ice island to the civilians, many civilians and even slaves from the mainland fled here to settle down. Therefore, the residents of the island were accustomed to the sudden increase of new neighbors, and no one asked about Alf's past. Christoph did not figure out the identity of his father before Alf died in the battle, but he guessed that Alf was either a pirate or a soldier. He did not care about these things. Christoph had this idea purely out of curiosity, without any extra thoughts. But now Alf died in the sudden battlefield to protect Christoph, making everything in the past meaningless. Christoph looked up at the sky, turned back and greeted his neighbor. "Yes, Uncle Clee, you got up so early too? I'm old and can't sleep in the morning." Clee seemed to have thought of something, and said to Christoph, "Christoph, take advantage of the blizzard to stop now, and pack up quickly. I think there will be a bigger blizzard before the night." "Okay, Uncle Clee." Christoph replied, lowered his head, and picked up the snow in front of the house. Bang bang. A sound came from the direction of the castle. A group of soldiers knocked on a wooden cylinder and shouted, "The Lord has ordered that soldiers are now being recruited to defend the territory and homeland. Anyone who is willing can sign up." Bang bang. "The Lord has ordered that soldiers are now being recruited to defend the territory and homeland. Anyone who is willing can sign up." After walking a distance, the soldiers repeated this order so that all the residents on both sides of the street could hear it. Upon hearing this, Christoph stopped sweeping the snow, went back to the house to put down his tools, and immediately rushed to the place outside the castle to sign up for the army. The reason why the ice and snow island started recruiting soldiers now is that in addition to waiting for the ice sea period to arrive, recruiting soldiers also requires some preparation, and it is not that you can recruit them immediately after finding someone. When Christoph arrived at the place, he did not expect that there were so many people signing up for the army, and they were all lined up in a long line. The enthusiasm of the ice and snow island for joining the army is still related to the battle some time ago. For example, Christoph, whose relatives died in the battle, joined the army at this time to have a chance to take revenge. Some people are simply afraid of facing an unknown fate again, fearing that they will be killed by someone if they are not careful. Originally, the residents of the island had a mind of watching the war in the south of the mainland, but they did not expect that when the war really happened, it would be so close to them. After Christoph successfully signed up for the army, he lived in the barracks behind the castle. The barracks were built on the hillside behind the Lord's castle. It is far away from the residential area, and training can also be carried out in the mountains at ordinary times. The most important thing is that it is close to the castle. Speed up. Today's goal is to get to the camp behind the mountain. A knight commanded the recruits and trained the soldiers' physical fitness. In the wind and snow, Christophe, wearing a grey military uniform, walked in the snow with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow, following the soldiers in front and moving towards the destination. The branches of the tall and straight winter trees on the roadside were covered with ice and snow. The soldiers all stayed away from their subordinates, fearing that the upside down ice would suddenly fall. After walking along the path and crossing the ridge, a cliff suddenly blocked the way ahead, but the soldiers did not stop and continued to march forward. When they reached the bottom of the cliff and turned around a huge rock, they found that there was a cave behind them. It was not an adjective, but there was really a cave under the cliff. The soldiers entered the cave one by one with ease. There was no torch in the cave, but it was as clear as the outside world. The ice cones above the head and the ice walls beside them could be seen clearly. Once they entered the cave, the knights who were shouting orders outside stopped talking, because too loud a sound might cause the sharp ice cones above the head to fall down. In other words, as long as they did not make any noise, the cave would be safe and the ice cones above the head would not fall for no reason. It turns out that this cliff is made of solid ice. This is an iceberg. There is nothing else on the ice and snow island. There is just enough ice and snow. There is nothing to make the soldiers curious. However, the soldiers looked at this iceberg because there is an ice cave that leads directly to the opposite side. After walking through a narrow ice cave, what appeared in front of everyone was a paradise. The lush green grass was mixed with some flowers and plants. There were even a few butterflies and flying insects flying around the flowers from nowhere. There were a few bustling green trees. Some animals suddenly regarded this place as their home. Some animals that were obviously natural enemies in the outside world could live in peace here. However, because of the arrival of the soldiers, the tranquil scenery here was broken. The animals fled one after another, leaving the soldiers with regrets on their faces. Take a break for a while. The knight gave the order to repair. The soldiers' bodies, which were like a heavy burden, relaxed instantly and sat down on the lawn one by one. Christophe also stretched out his legs and sat on a grassy slope, holding a piece of tender grass in the corner of his mouth, using both hands to support his raised body, looking up at the ice dome above his head. The sun shone through the ice layer into this space, and there were strands of colorful fluorescence. He didn't know how this place was formed. The temperature inside the iceberg was surprisingly warm, which made him want to take off his fur coat. Okay, soldiers, keep moving forward. After a short rest, the knight gave the order to continue the march. The soldiers did not disturb the peace here, except for a few flowers and plants that were pulled out casually, and a row of footprints. They took nothing else, and left nothing behind. The animals hiding in the hidden place waited for a long time, and after confirming that there was no sign of these humans returning, they ran out from their hiding places, and played and jumped in this small space. After walking through a long ice cave, the team entered a valley. A dark river appeared in the valley. The unfrozen river water allowed the soldiers to replenish enough water. After leaving the valley, the team climbed a hill. Below the hill was the location of the ice and snow island silver mine. However, the mine was opened by sea, and the mountain could be reached quickly from another direction. Under the command of the knight, the recruits went down the hill from behind, walked through a winding and rugged mountain road, and came to an ice lake. At this time, the ice lake had already frozen, and the thick ice layer was enough for everyone to walk on it safely. There was a small village in the leeward side of the ice lake. A few blue smoke drifted into the air from the houses, covered with ice and snow. It seemed that this village should rely on this ice lake for its life. After the ice lake, it was the camp that the knight mentioned. There was a forest around the camp, with needle-shaped leaves and hard and straight trunks reaching up to the blue sky. This camp was originally built for collecting trees. These trees were transported to the seaport, and finally built into sea ships. However, now this camp has been abandoned for a long time, and has become a temporary residence for training soldiers. In fact, this road was also discovered by the people of Ice and Snow Island when they were exploring the entire island a long time ago. However, the road now is very different from before. For example, the ice cave was only discovered a few years ago. Chapter 267 Encountering Pirates on the Road. In the cold winter, the northern part of the continent near the Ice and Snow Island is far away from the war-torn land in the south, but it is not peaceful at all. When Christophe was still training, after joining the army, the ocean of the northern continent welcomed a fleet of ships crossing the sea. General Lee, I didn't expect there are so many pirates in the north. I thought no one in this place knew the art of navigation. Chang Sun Sheng stood on the side of the ship, looking at the wreckage floating near. Li Bao smiled and said, Mr. Chang Sun, this is the territory of the natives, not the barren southern border. There is no boat or sail on the sea. It is reasonable that some ships are on the sea, but, looking at the two small boats escaping in the distance, Chang Sun Sheng also knew what Li Bao wanted to say, so he nodded in agreement and said, yes, this ship is too simple, and can hardly withstand a single blow. Not only is a ship simple, but there is no tactics or rules. They just rush up in a swarm, to prepare for close combat. I'm not interested in such a fleet. Li Bao nodded to Chang Sun Sheng first, then looked at the distance and shook his head repeatedly. At this moment, Li Bao led the fleet to successfully reach the northern waters after nearly half a year of exploration and sailing. The fleet was not composed of 3 frigates as in the past. It is now the winter of the 10th year of Cheyenne Key. Half a year ago, the 2 destroyers and 3 new frigates of the Navy were completed after more than a year of construction. Not only that, the shipyard of the Navy town has finally been fully utilized because of the addition of a large number of talents in the past 2 years. Since the shipyard of the Navy town was put into this place by Yang Song, 5 large dry docks and several small docks have not been fully utilized for so many years. However, now that the first batch of talents in Xiago have grown up and joined all walks of life across the country, the demand for some basic technical talents has been solved. I don't know if the shipyard of the Navy town has been fully utilized. Even the Linhai town in the Linhai basin has built a small shipyard according to the plan, which can produce simple fishing boats and transport ships. The fleet on the back that Li Bao brought this time consists of a destroyer, 2 frigates and 2 newly developed and built supply ships. This type of supply ship is larger than a destroyer, with an unprecedented length of 40 meters and a maximum width of 9 meters. This aspect ratio makes this supply ship look a bit fat and not slim at all. In addition, the masts of the supply ship are different from those of previous warships. Whether it is a newly built destroyer or a frigate, they only have 3 masts, while this type of supply ship has 4 masts, 2 main masts and 2 secondary masts. Because the positioning of the supply ship is just like its name, it is only used to transport supplies. There is also a set of cranes on the decks on both sides of the supply ship, which are driven by small steam engines, and can be used for very convenient supply operations for warships. The reason why the supply ship is called a ship is because it is armed, but the main task of the supply ship is to provide supplies for other warships. It is an auxiliary ship, so the armament is only 10 level 5 naval guns for self-defense in emergencies, which are set on the open deck. Warship level, supply ship specifications. 40 meters long and 9 meters wide. Full load displacement. 1500 tons. Armament. 10 5th class naval guns, caliber 100 mm, open deck. Equipment, 2 sets of steam cranes, ship swelling, carrying. 500 to 800 soldiers or 500 tons of supplies. Crew. 300. Hull structure, a total of 5 floors. 1 superstructure. The hull is divided into 4 floors. The superstructure is used for command and residence. The 4th floor is the living floor. The 2nd to 3rd floors are all storage floors, and the bottom floor is the ballast floor. If it weren't for the 2 newly built supply ships, Li Bao's exploration fleet would not have come to the North Sea, which is more than 4,000 kilometers away from Linhai town. Looking at the armament of the supply ship alone, it is actually the level of a frigate. Looking at the positioning, the supply ship is an auxiliary ship, but looking at the role, it is very important, and its status is much higher than that of an ordinary warship. In addition to operating equipment and controlling the supply ship, the 300 crew members on the ship are reserve sailors, porters, and landing soldiers. If a warship loses manpower, it can be transferred from the supply ship. During the supply operation, it will act as porters. If landing operations are required, these manpower can take swords and guns to fight on the shore. Although the Xia Kingdom's muskets have not been replaced in the army, they are in the navy. Everyone has one, which has increased the navy's combat power several times. but the corresponding consumption of ammunition and dependence on logistical supplies are more serious. This is another reason why the entire navy is equipped with muskets after the construction of 3 new supply ships. An hour ago, Andy led his pirate group to swim on the sea, looking for targets on the waterway. The plan to take advantage of the fire some time ago failed because of the failure of the 5 territories, which made him very regretful for a while. Fortunately, these pirates were cautious. Even if there were orders from the people behind them, they still did not rush up to be cannon fodder in the first time, so that they did not suffer any losses. At that time, the cruelty of the ice and snow island was a severe shock to these pirates. However, because he did not complete the order of his employer, some of the needed supplies were gone, so Andy had to open a business to get something for his pirate group. On the offshore route, Andy happened to meet his old acquaintance Anot, and Anot's experience was similar to his. Otherwise, the probability of meeting in this vast ocean was too small. After Andy and Anot met at sea, they decided to join forces to do a big job and prepare to plunder a large fleet. However, the large fleet did not encounter, but encountered 5 super large ships, never seen before flags, never seen before large ships. And these 5 large ships are the northbound exploration fleet of Zyre State. The fleet passed through many coastal towns and finally arrived in this cold North Sea after nearly half a year of sailing. However, although the 2 were shocked by the hugeness of these 5 ships, especially the 2 at the back, which were like a mobile fortress, daunting, they still decided to go forward to plunder. It would be great if we could rob these 5 ships. Andy almost drooled as he looked at the 5 large ships on the opposite side. In Andy's opinion, no matter how big the ships were, there were only 5 of them. The 2 large pirate ships on their side had nearly 30 ships in total, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Okay, how about we each take one of the 2 big ships at the back? Anot was also very envious of the 5 ships in front, but he knew that he couldn't swallow them all by himself. Andy thought for a while, pointed to the destroyer in front and said, "We can each take one of the 2 smaller ships, but what about this ship?" They hadn't succeeded yet, and the 2 had already started discussing how to divide the spoils. Chapter 268, The Power of the Fleet. After Andy and Anot finished their discussion, they surrounded the Zyre fleet. Chang Sun Sheng was on the ship, looking at the dozens of ships that were coming from afar with a telescope. He put down his telescope and said to Li Bao, who was standing at the bow with his hands behind his back, "General Li, you are here with bad intentions." Haha. Hearing this, Li Bao looked at the dozens of ships approaching and laughed. "Since I went abroad to the north to explore, I didn't expect to meet so many people who are not afraid of death along the way. Yes, especially in this recent sea area. The further north you go, the more pirates you will encounter." Chang Sun Sheng sighed at the number of pirates, but he had no mercy on the enemy. Since these natives are looking for death, this general will fulfill their wish. Li Bao seemed to be smiling, but his tone was chilling. Li Bao raised his right hand, changed his expression, and ordered seriously, "Order the fleet to fill the ship's guns, and prepare for shelling." The reason why Chang Sun Sheng was in the exploration fleet was that he took the initiative to ask Yang Song for it. The only exchanges between Zyre and the outside world are with several nearby territories, and the most frequent exchanges are with Fulamat. However, because Zyre and Fulamat have a stable and special relationship, Chang Sun Sheng does not have to go on a diplomatic mission in person, and ordinary work is enough for promotion. So when Chang Sun Sheng learned that Yang Song had asked the Navy to form a new exploration fleet, he took the initiative to volunteer to serve as a diplomatic staff member on board. The newly formed exploration fleet is to prepare for a long-term exploration plan. Because it is inevitable to contact outsiders for a long time, the translators and diplomatic staff on board are indispensable. Even if there are special supply ships that can provide long-term supplies for the fleet, the reason why the exploration fleet is an exploration is that in addition to exploring the waterway, it is also necessary to find out the general intelligence along the coast. Therefore, it is also within the responsibility of the exploration fleet to dock from time to time. So after Chang Sun Sheng took the initiative to volunteer, Yang Song agreed to Chang Sun Sheng's request after some thought. Following Li Bao's order, 3 warships, 1 large and 2 small, with a destroyer in the middle and 2 frigates guarding the 2 wings, turned their bows in unison and exposed the right side of the ship to the pirates. The muzzles of the destroyer's gun deck opened, revealing 6 black missiles on the side of the ship, and 7 guns were also launched on the open deck above. The destroyer was equipped with 6 4th level naval guns and 7 5th level naval guns on each side of the ship. If you don't look closely, you can't see much difference between these 2 levels of guns, because they all have a black hull anyway. The caliber of the 4th level naval gun is 120mm, weighs 1,200 kilograms, and has an effective range of 2,100 meters. The caliber of the 5th level naval gun is 100mm, the gun weighs 800 kilograms, and the effective range is 1,800 meters. If you are not particularly sensitive to this size, you can't tell the difference of 20mm at once. Each frigate had only 4 level 5 naval guns on one side, all installed on the open deck of the warship. In addition to the guns on the side of the ship, there was also a naval gun at the bow and stern of the frigate. So after the 3 warships were transformed into a battle line, there were a total of 21 guns of different sizes facing the pirates at the same time. Fire! Libeo's half-raised right hand was waved down with force as he shouted loudly, and the command flag also issued an attack command along with Libeo's right hand. The captain received Libeo's order and gave the same order to his deputy. The deputy then gave the order to the gunner to fire. Finally, the gunner gave the specific order to the gunner to fire in sequence. A series of orders were conveyed in just a moment. The sailors who had already loaded the gun started from one end and pulled the ropes connected to the gun flintlocks in sequence. Boom boom boom. One after another, the cannon shells were fired with a wisp of green smoke and hit the pirate ship that was still 600 or 700 meters away from the fleet. After a round of artillery fire, several pirate ships were blown to pieces, and several were hit by near misses, falling to one side and slowly sinking. The artillery is ready. A moment later, the deputy received a report from the artillery chief and repeated it loudly to the captain. The captain ordered the flag sailor to send a ready feedback to the flagship, and the feedback was finally uploaded to the fleet headquarters in turn. General, the fleet artillery is loaded. The officer behind him reported to Libeo. Libeo learned that the fleet's artillery was ready to attack again and immediately ordered, aim at the pirates, and after another volley, each warship is free to fire. Libeo's order was then returned and passed on again. The whole process seemed cumbersome, but no link was redundant. Every officer had his own duties, and every sailor had his own battle position. Everything was in order and orderly. The Navy is different from other armies. Warships are a basic unit. Each warship is a whole, and it will not be divided into large, medium and small teams like the army. Multiple warships form a fleet, and a fleet with warships of various functions will form a large combat power. Therefore, the Navy attaches great importance to integrity, whether it is the integrity of each warship or the integrity between the warships and the fleet. The salvo order issued by Libeo is called a salvo, but it does not really let the guns of a warship attack at the same time, but there is a short pause between 2 guns. Because if the guns on each side of the warship are really fired at the same time, the huge reaction force of the guns will destroy the structure of the warship and even damage the keel, and it is possible that their weapons will shake the warship itself apart. It is not that the warship is unreliable, but the recoil of the guns fired together is very huge. After all, the power is mutual. So in order to avoid such a situation, in actual combat, each gun is fired in sequence, so as to avoid damage to the warship itself. Boom boom boom. After a series of cannon fire, the pirate ships on the opposite side stopped approaching and turned around in panic to escape. Some pirate ships even turned around without paying attention to their side, causing the 2 pirate ships to collide with each other. Although the pirates wanted to escape, Libeo would not let them go so easily. He ordered, chase forward. Following the order to pursue, the 2 supply ships that had lowered their sails and slowed down to wait for the outcome of the battle in front also raised their sails again and chased forward with the warships. Because these fleeing pirate ships were rowed by manpower, their speed was still very fast for a while, but the battle of the exploration fleet did not rely on speed, but on powerful cannons. Boom boom boom. The fleet chased and fired at the same time, and the speed of the Xia Kingdom warships was not slow, causing these pirates to suffer heavy losses. Stop the pursuit. Li Bao looked at the pirates, who were only a few ships fleeing in all directions, and ordered the fleet to stop the pursuit. There was no need to continue wasting time and artillery shells on the remaining ships. Chapter 269, Arrival in the Northern Territory. On the pirate side, after Andy and Honor discussed the distribution of the spoils, they immediately commanded their pirates to rush forward. On it, the ship in the middle, whoever grabs it will own it. During the advance, Andy looked at the warship beside him, stood at the bow, and shouted loudly to the side. Haha, no problem. Arnott heard Andy's shout, laughed twice and urged his subordinates, push hard, row hard, speed up, the ship in front is mine. Did you hear that? You will row hard too. If you let Arnott get ahead, you know the consequences. Andy looked at the warship beside him with a significant speed increase, and immediately urged his subordinates. Seeing that the 5 large ships in front were getting closer and closer, suddenly, among the 5 large ships on the opposite side, the 3 smaller ones in front all slid across the sea in an arc, turning their hulls sideways to them. Watching the movements of the big ships on the opposite side, especially the one in the front that had a row of black holes, Andy immediately had a bad premonition. Before Andy could make the next move, the 3 big ships on the opposite side suddenly emitted a burst of fire, followed by a deafening thunder. What is this? He seemed to see a black shadow passing by, and Andy's inner uneasiness reached its peak. Boom boom boom. The sudden explosions beside him made Andy suddenly dazed, his chest felt stuffy, and he was a little breathless. It seemed that something was whistling quickly in his ears. Then there was the violent ups and downs of the ship. If Andy hadn't held on tightly, he would have been thrown out of the ship. When the sea calmed down a little, Andy hurriedly got up and looked around, but found that there was only a pile of wooden boards left at the location of Arnott's ship next to him. On it, Andy shouted loudly, but there was no response from the other side. Chief, I just saw Chief Arnott's warship fall apart in a ball of fire, and Chief Arnott, I saw him being swallowed by the fire. A chief with blood all over his face came to report. Is that so? Arnott's experience made Andy feel unprecedented fear, which was the fear of unknown power. He then looked at the chief's face. There was a long cut on the right cheek of the chief, and the blood on his face was flowing from the wound. Ah, my eye. Not far away, a pirate collapsed on the ship and rolled left and right. A closer look showed that the pirate's right eye was pierced by a piece of sawdust. At this time, Andy found that a big hole appeared on the sail of the warship he was riding. Some injured pirates kept groaning, and no one was operating the warship. However, the warship was still approaching the big ship in front under the action of inertia. This was not good. Obviously, these ships were not easy to mess with. How could they continue to move forward? Just as Andy was about to order a retreat, he saw another burst of fire and thunder on the opposite side, followed by a loud noise in his ears. He seemed to feel himself become light and weightless, turning into a bird and flying into the sky. Looking down, a familiar warship on the sea surface was on fire, and accompanied by flying wood chips, the warship was torn into pieces. This was the last scene Andy saw. The leader is dead. A terrified shout made the remaining pirate ships seem like frightened birds, running around and fleeing in a hurry to the distance. This was the situation when Xia State encountered indigenous pirates before. Mr. Changsun, how long have we been away from Xia State? Li Bao ignored the cry for help from the pirates who fell into the water behind the warship and asked Changsun Sheng about the time. Changsun Sheng did not care about these pirates, but stroked his beard and replied, "Generally, it has been 91 days. 91 days. Li Bao sighed, turned and walked into the cabin, looked at the map on the wall, picked up the tools on the table to measure, and drew a few new lines with a pen. Changsun Sheng followed Li Bao and saw the newly added track, saying, "It has been more than 4,500 kilometers away from Xia country." Yes. Li Bao nodded, feeling proud of the fleet and his own feat. He asked Changsun Sheng, "The sea water is getting colder and colder. It should be close to the northern cold zone that the king mentioned, right? According to the distance, we are already near the border." Changsun Sheng and Li Bao and other Xia people now know that the world they stand on is a sphere, and they also know that this planet has 5 zones. Li Bao looked at the map. The map only has the sea area, the coastline, several river estuaries, and important towns distributed along the coast. The area within the coastline only has a general situation. The information on the map was collected by the intelligence personnel of Zaya State, but compared with the map of Zaya State, it was very incomplete and only had an approximate description. We will return after reaching the ice and snow island in the north. Li Bao pointed to an island in the north of the map, which was the destination of their trip. It is estimated that we will not be able to reach it this year. Chang Sun Sheng shook his head and continued, according to the recent news from the shore, the sea area near the ice and snow island will freeze every winter, and will not thaw again until the early summer of next year. I know, so our target this year is the nearby sea area. In this high altitude cold area, it is not possible to spend the winter at sea. After Li Bao finished speaking about his plan, he stood up and order the frigate number 503 to go forward and search for a harbor that can shelter from the wind. The warships of the Navy are all numbered and divided according to the type and level of the ship. Frigates are 3-digit numbers starting with 5, destroyers are 3-digit numbers starting with 1, and supply ships are 4-digit numbers starting with 1. The cruisers and battleships at Zaya State does not have 2-digit numbers starting with 5 and 2-digit numbers starting with 1 in the numbering sequence. But in the evening, the frigate number 503 returned to the fleet and reported that there was a coastal city more than 20 kilometers ahead, with a dock where warships could be parked. Li Bao looked at the sky and ordered the fleet to drop anchor and stop the ship. It was dark, and it would take more than 2 hours to reach the location they had found out. It was not convenient for the fleet to sail at night in unfamiliar waters. Moreover, even if they arrived at the port ahead, such a large fleet running to someone else's territory in the middle of the night would inevitably make people think the worst. So Li Bao decided that it would be better to rest on the spot tonight and wait until the next morning to prepare and rush over to negotiate. Mr. Changsun, this stop is different from the past. At night, Li Bao and Chang Sun Sheng sat around a brazier in the superstructure cabin of the destroyer to keep warm. Li Bao rubbed his hands in front of the brazier, and the red light of the flames reflected on his face, making it difficult to see his expression. Chang Sun Sheng withdrew his hands from the brazier, put them under his abdomen and said, "That's true. I wonder what General Li is planning." Chapter 270 Zaya Country Train. Mr. Changsun, the fleet is stationed in an unfamiliar place for a long time. I'm worried that there will be some unnecessary troubles. Li Bao slowly expressed his concerns. General Li, don't worry. Changsun Sheng smiled and said, it's only 4 or 5 months. We just need to be careful and be prepared to evacuate at any time. We are not afraid of any conspiracy from these people. Yes, Mr. Changsun is right. Li Bao thought of the past of this man in front of him. He could convince most people with his mouth, so that the fleet got a lot of help on the way north. Chang Sun Sheng thought for a while and said, if there is an accident, the fleet can go south for a distance first. During this time, we will conduct a detailed exploration in this sea area. What do you think of this, General Li? Good idea. Li Bao heard Chang Sun Sheng's suggestion and immediately raised his head and decided, use this method. The fleet will explore the surrounding waters and dock for supplies every once in a while. But in this way, the soldiers will be very hard. Chang Sun Sheng was a little worried whether the soldiers of the fleet could hold on until early summer next year. Li Bao heard this and said indifferently, Mr. Changsun, don't worry. The fleet doesn't have to explore every day. It can just dock for a few days after a while. That's true. Chang Sun Sheng nodded and bowed to Li Bao, saying, I'll trouble you, General Li. Li Bao quickly clasped his fists in return and said, Mr. Changsun, what are you talking about? I also want to thank you for your advice along the way. Thank you for your hard work. Chang Sun Sheng is not only a diplomatic translator in the fleet, but sometimes he also makes some suggestions to Li Bao and serves as a half-military advisor and staff officer. If it is said that the Zaya Kingdom Navy has not developed much because there is no demand, then the demand for road transportation is very large. Your Majesty, the railway from Industrial Town to the north of Cheyenne Key City has been laid and can be opened to traffic at any time. Zhang Yu brought Zhang Yu from the Engineering Bureau and Shen Kuo from the Institute of Science and Technology to meet Yang Song, and reported to Yang Song on the construction of the trial operation of the railway. Yang Song put down the documents in his hand, looked up at Zhang Yu and asked, "I know, how is the construction of the train going?" At Zhang Yu's eye prompt, Zhang Yu bowed and reported, "Your Majesty, 6 locomotives have been built, with 32 freight cars and 12 passenger cars. Half a year ago, in the early summer of the 10th year of Qianqi, the Institute of Science and Technology and the Engineering Bureau finally verified all the technologies according to the design drawings of the train, and tried to build a small section of railway and a locomotive. After the test run verified the actual object, and made some improvements in details, Xiaoguo was finally able to build a steam locomotive using steam engine technology, which was also considered to be the initial entry into the era of steam-powered transportation." Yang Song asked Shen Kuo, "Very good, give me a brief introduction to the specific data of the train." "Yes, Your Majesty." Shen Kuo bowed and said, 2 of the 6 completed trains are for passenger transport, and 4 are for freight transport. Whether it is a passenger or freight train, each train has 8 carriages, including the power locomotive and the coal and water car, a total of 10. Shen Kuo then gave Yang Song a general introduction to the train. The speed of the test train reached more than 60 km per hour. At this speed, it takes less than an hour to reach Qianqi City from the industrial town. Name, steam-powered train. Specifications, track gauge. 1500 mm, carriage width. 4200 mm, carriage length. 25,000 mm, design speed. 70 km/h. After listening to Shen Kuo's description of the train, Yang Song couldn't wait to stand up and said, "Let's go and see the train." After seeing the train parked in the newly built railway station outside the north of Qianqi City, Yang Song felt a sacred sense of witnessing history with his own eyes. Yang Song boarded the train with some ministers, who came to ask questions, and asked Zhang Yu, "Doesn't it only take more than 10 hours to reach Qianqi City from Shanhaiguan?" Woo. A long whistle sounded. Yang Song did not indicate the destination, because there was only one destination now, Industrial Town. Zhang Yu knew what Yang Song was thinking when he heard this, and felt the slowly starting train, and replied, "Your Majesty, yes, but the construction of a 700-kilometer railway cannot be completed overnight." Yang Song knew Zhang Yu's implicit reminder, and knew his worries. The distance from Industrial Town to Qianqi City was only about 30 kilometers, and this section of the road had been built for nearly half a year. Although there was no experience in the initial construction and the technology had to be verified while it was being built, such a long distance also required a lot of investment and time. "I know what you are worried about, Wenruo." Yang Song waved his hand at Zhang Yu and said, "After the trial run from Industrial Town to Qianqi City meets the standards, the railway from Qianqi City to Qianqian Pass and Shanhaiguan must be built. This is related to the country's strategy and must be built. I obey your command." Zhang Yu bowed and accepted the order. After standing up, he thought for a while and said, "Your Majesty, a distance of 700 kilometers, including the early exploration and route selection, midterm construction, and later traffic. According to my estimate, it will take at least 10 years. 10 years. Yang Song asked with a straight face. "Even if it is built according to the existing channels, it will take 10 years. My lord, yes." This question was answered by the professional Zhang Yu. "It takes 1,200 tons of steel to build 1 kilometer of double-track railway. For this item alone, 700 kilometers of steel requires the country's existing production to be produced continuously for 84 years. A 700-kilometer railway requires 840,000 tons of steel. Therefore, after calculating the development speed of the country's steel production, I believe that only if the annual steel production reaches more than 1 million tons can this section of railway be built in just a few years. Your Majesty, the railway from Industrial Town to Qianqi City has consumed nearly 40,000 tons of steel, which has exhausted the country's steel reserves for many years." Zhang Yu seemed to think it was not enough, and stabbed Yang Song in the heart again. 84 years. 840,000 tons of steel? Million tons. A series of huge numbers made Yang Song dizzy. He usually thought that Xiago had entered the industrial age and surpassed the natives of this world for many years, but he didn't know that it would take 10 years to build a railway in the country. Moreover, Yang Song knew that there were many aspects that Zhe knew and others did not say. He was the monarch of Xiago and was in charge of everything, so he knew that it was not a simple matter to achieve the annual output of 1 million tons of steel, as Zhang Yu said. Steel needs iron ore needs iron ore needs manpower to dig, and the manpower required to produce such a huge amount of ore is very huge. Not to mention that the manpower required for factories and mines such as smelters, manufacturing plants, and coal mines is not a small number. The increase in population also requires food. If you want to increase food, you must increase the population and planting area. And with more people, supporting facilities such as food, clothing, housing and transportation must also be increased. This is a cycle. Each link is not achieved overnight, and one of them cannot be missing. There are many things in this world that cannot be bought even with money, so everything still depends on the development of Xiago itself. Thinking of this, Yang Song suddenly had a headache, and he didn't even have time to look at the scenery outside the car. He held his forehead and said weakly, "Let's plan it for 10 years. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 271, 10-Year Plan. Yang Song took an hour to take the train and returned to Xianqi City before dusk that day. He spent several hours on the way to inspect the industrial town filled with black smoke. On the train, Yang Song and the ministers experienced the miracle of industrial speed. After Yang Song missed it, and the ministers were surprised, they discussed and decided on the future development of Xia State that day, the 10-year plan. The 10-year plan is certain, and Xia State must continue to develop around this plan. In the winter of the 10th year of Xianqi, the population of Xia State was close to 5 million. The 100,000 native captives, who originally accounted for a large proportion of the population of Xia State, are no longer valued. In order to build the railway to Shanhaiguan as soon as possible, this is related to the new strategic layout of Xia State. Whether it is foreign war or defending the country, with the steam locomotive, the convenience will be raised to another level. To achieve this goal first, Xia State's annual steel production must reach at least 1 million tons. 1 million tons of steel requires more than 1 million tons of ore. With ore, there must be a sufficient number and output of iron-making blast furnaces and coking ovens. To have these, Xia State's technical reserves must be sufficient. With these factories, at least millions of workers and tens of thousands of technicians are needed, so education must keep up. With such a number of workers, the population of Xiago is at least tens of millions. Otherwise other industries, especially the number of people producing food, will not be enough. This requires reasonable planning of administrative management. And all of this boils down to the fact that productivity must be raised to a new level to meet the needs. In the final analysis, enough people are still needed. As long as there is enough population, coupled with reasonable planning, coordination, and systematic development, it will be natural for steel to reach an annual output of 1 million tons. Although Xiago, or Yang Song, has always been developing Xiago's productivity, it has always taken into account other aspects such as the army, fleet, and foreign affairs, and has not completely calmed down and devoted itself to development. By the end of the month, the country's population has reached 5 million, with an additional 2 million people. The army will maintain a size of 42,000 this year. The navy has 3 destroyers, 6 frigates, and 3 supply ships, and all transport ships have been converted to civilian use. At the end of year meeting at the end of December in the 10th year of Xianqi, after all departments had finished reporting, Yang Song said to all the ministers, "Now our country has mature steam technology. In order to make this technology truly useful to the country, a plan must be formulated." Lurk asked Yang Song on behalf of the ministers, "Please give your instructions." Within 10 years, the country's population will reach more than 30 million, the annual output of steel will reach 1 million tons, and the grain output will meet all the needs of the country's development. Yang Song formally conveyed the goals that he had discussed with Liu, Zhang Yu and others in advance to the ministers at the court meeting. I accept your order. After Yang Song established the goal, all the ministers accepted it in unison. At the end of the 9th year of Qianqi, the population of Xia state was only 3 million, and it was able to increase to 5 million a year later because Xia state had fully focused on development within this year. The army was expanded by the end of the 9th year of Qianqi, the warships were built in the middle of the 10th year of Qianqi, and the railway from the industrial town to Qianqi city was completed in the early winter of the 10th year of Qianqi. In fact, when the railway was being built, Yang Song felt that the demand for manpower in Xia was insufficient and consciously increased the intensity of conscripting the people, otherwise there would not be an increase of 2 million people in a year. You must know that in the past, except for the first few years, Xia had conscripted the people with all its strength. After the war, after the implementation of the strategic reserve plan, the annual increase in population has slowed down, far from reaching the limit. Now with the strategic reserves of these years, there are not too many concerns about increasing the population. Anyway, there is confidence, which is also one of the advantages reflected by Xia after the implementation of the strategic reserve plan. Zhang Yu, without affecting the development of the country, how many people can be added by the end of next year? With the 10-year plan, Yang Song immediately asked Zhang Yu about the population growth rate of Xia. Zhang Yu knew all these very well. He just roughly calculated them in his mind and replied, Your Majesty, if we use the strategic reserve grain and take into account the natural births, we can add 3 million people next year. 3 million? 10 years means 30 million, and with the population of Xia increasing at an annual rate, it will definitely take less than 10 years to achieve this goal. Yang Song made a simple calculation in his mind and immediately knew that the population goal could be achieved. So he nodded and said, very good, then the new population must keep up with the food, clothing, housing and transportation. Yes, Your Majesty, I obey your command. The 3 million Zhang Yu mentioned included the ones mentioned by Yang Song, otherwise the number could be higher, but now that Yang Song had said it, he had to say that he obeyed your command. Education must also keep up. I don't want my people to be illiterate. Yang Song said this to Yang Li and Zhuz in the office of the academy. I will obey your command. The two stood up and obeyed in unison. Yang Song hummed and continued, the Department of Justice, the Department of Taxation, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and other departments must also keep up and cannot fall behind. Yes, Your Majesty. All the ministers agreed. Yang Song did not want to develop in one direction, while other directions fell behind. This was not what he wanted. Your Majesty, the iron ore that our country is currently mining is only some small and medium-sized veins, which cannot meet the development needs of our country at all. I hope Your Majesty will make plans early. Zhang Yu waited for Yang Song to finish his instructions and stood up to report. If the output of iron ore cannot keep up, then find new veins. Yang Song thought to himself that there were only a few ways to increase the output of iron ore, either to increase manpower or to find new veins. We must make plans early for this. Yang Song first affirmed Zhang Yu's suggestion, and then he asked Zhang Yu, can large iron ore be found in the country? Your Majesty, Director Zhuziak of the Bureau of Resources wrote to me 2 days ago saying that a vein was found in the western mountainous area of Linhai Mountain. The initial exploration showed tens of millions of tons, and it is expected to exceed 100 million tons in the future. It seems that Zhang Yu came prepared, and Yang Song's inquiry should be what Zhang Yu was about to report. Oh. Yang Song was still a little surprised. This news was really timely. Whenever Xiaguo needed some materials, it could always find them easily in the surrounding area, as if something was guiding it in the dark. Yang Song did not continue to think deeply. Anyway, he didn't need to guess that it was the system's fault. Sometimes Yang Song even wondered if the system would issue some mandatory tasks if he didn't walk in front of the system every time. Chapter 272 Eternal Development. What about the output of coal? In the industrial age, energy is indispensable. Now that there are new discoveries in iron ore, the only thing missing is energy. Your Majesty is wise. This is exactly what I want to suggest. Zanu bowed and said, nowadays, the output of coal in our country must continue to increase. Fortunately, the reserves of coal in the Cheyenne Mountains are very rich. We only need to increase the number of people to increase the output of coal. That's good. Yang Song was relieved when he heard that there was no problem with coal. If the reserves of coal mines were insufficient, then he would not be able to develop at all. He could only launch wars outside and strive to expand his territory in the hope of discovering the resources needed by Xia. However, Yang Song thought about it later and felt that all this must have been arranged by the system. There are large iron mines in the Linhai Mountains to the north of the Cheyenne Mountains. The Cheyenne Mountains themselves have enough coal mines. In addition, after driving the primitive natives southward, they obtained a large area of land suitable for growing crops. It seems that it was planned in advance. According to this idea, Yang Song estimated that when Xia developed to the electrical age, natural chemical raw materials such as oil might be discovered in large quantities. Not to mention the future. Even now, the intelligence personnel have learned from outside Shanhaiguan that in the western Inuan country, there is intelligence that a black flammable liquid is used as a weapon. After reading the intelligence personnel's description of this black flammable liquid, Yang Song can be sure that this is oil. In addition to knowing that Inuan country has discovered that a large amount of oil is used as a weapon, Yang Song has not heard of the news of oil resources in Xia country. Let the flying thoughts return to the present. Yang Song ordered Zun Yu, make a good mining plan, and be sure to ensure the needs of steel smelting. Yes, my lord, I will obey your order. I will definitely make a good mining plan. Zun Yu knew the difficulty in the middle, but he still made a solemn promise. Yang Song is not unaware of Zun Yu's ability, and Zun Yu also knows the reason why Yang Song told him so. Because Yang Song has always emphasized balanced development, Yang Song asked Zun Yu to make a good mining plan, which means that other aspects should be taken into account, and people's livelihood should not be ignored, in order to increase steel production. The amount of iron ore and coal mined, the balance between the two, and the balance beyond this must be controlled well. The degree between them is not so easy to grasp, which is also a difficult challenge for Zun Yu's administrative ability. But we can't ignore or despise other aspects just because of the development of steel. Many previous lessons have made Yang Song think over and over again for every decision he makes, thinking about whether this decision is radical and whether there are any bad collateral effects. In fact, Yang Song regards steel production as a very important indicator in the 10-year plan, because the development of the smelting industry can also develop other industries, including the people's livelihood. For example, if you want to make a furnace of high quality steel, you must have enough high quality energy. In the era without electric melting technology, coke is a very important energy source. And coke is made from coal. In the process of making coke, coal will produce many precious byproducts, such as benzene and ammonia, which are raw materials for the chemical industry. This is just one of them. In addition, many workers will be born in the process of steel making, and the incidental effect on the people is very large. If a steel mill has workers, it must pay wages. If workers have wages, they must spend money and buy many necessities. If there is demand, someone will produce and supply it. If there is production, there must be raw materials and people. In this way, a series of economic developments will be driven, which is a driving effect formed from top to bottom. Therefore, the purpose of steel making is not only to make steel, but also to use steel making as a breakthrough to accelerate the development of Xiaguo in the new era. Although steel is also very important, development is eternal and will never change. This is a very precious point that Yang Song learned in the previous world. If he had not attached importance to development, Xiaguo would not have reached the point where it has now entered the steam age in just 10 years. Yang Song also conducted a detailed verification of what he knew before when he was building power in this world, so that he knew that some truths are truth. He shook his head, drove away the sudden realization of this feeling in his mind, and continued to order. All departments must work together and cooperate with each other to strive to realize the 10-year plan as soon as possible. Ministers and others will follow the teachings of the monarch. The ministers were respectful and said yes. After the annual meeting, Yang Song returned to the mansion, sat behind the desk, and opened a booklet. This booklet was the same as the steam engine technology application plan he gave to LIUG. It was used to record various important plans. This booklet was called Basics of Chemical Industry, and was one of the books he prepared for the industrialization of Zaya State. The basis of the chemical industry is 3 acids and 2 alkalis, namely nitric acid, HNO, sulfuric acid, HSO, hydrochloric acid, HCl, and sodium hydroxide, NaO, sodium carbonate, NaCO. Almost all chemical work, whether organic or inorganic, must have 3 acids and 2 alkalis involved, or partially involved in the whole process, which is in an indispensable position. 3 acids and 2 alkalis can be said to be the first element of the chemical industry. The reason why Yang Song knows the basis of the chemical industry is because he knew these things by hearing and seeing because of his work in the past. Otherwise, he, a liberal arts job, would not be exposed to this knowledge. As for the little things he learned in junior high school, he had already returned them to the teacher. In this era, when the periodic table of element was not born, the study of chemistry was limited to applied experience, but the essence of it was completely unknown. If it weren't for Jehong, a chemist and religious figure, Yang Song would have almost forgotten about this, and even forgotten that there was a chemistry course in science and engineering. So while he still remembered it, he recorded all the knowledge he knew and could think of, and kept it well, just waiting for the day when he could use it. It's not that Yang Song didn't want to take it out all at once, but because this is already another world, many things are starting from scratch and can't be copied from the past. For example, the chemistry in this world is called alchemy by Jehong, and the names of many chemical elements may be completely different names from the moment they are born. So if Yang Song said all these things, the differences between them might cause these researchers to go astray, wasting time and energy in vain. Moreover, this knowledge is not needed now, but after dozens or hundreds of years, his descendants may be able to use it. Chapter 273, Calm. In the spring and summer of the 11th year of Cheyenne Key, except for the ice and snow island in the ice sea period, all other forces in the Bilu Sea had spent an extraordinary winter and a spring. Everyone in the Bilu Sea knew one thing, that is, the legendary Zaya Kingdom in the southern continent had an invincible fleet. Although this fleet had only 5 warships, no one in the entire Bilu Sea dared to provoke it, because the pirates in the northern region used their lives to interpret the invincible reputation of the Zaya Kingdom Navy. This matter has to start from the time when Li Bao decided to conduct a detailed exploration in the northern region. At the beginning, Li Bao decided to let the exploration fleet take advantage of the ice and snow island in the ice sea period to conduct a detailed exploration in the cold northern region. In the process of exploration, the fleet basically lined up small boats or docked directly at every seaport they encountered and used the materials carried by the fleet to trade and took the opportunity to build good relationships and obtain intelligence. The high quality materials produced by the Zaya Kingdom, or military materials, were well received by the local dignitaries. These people had long heard that there was a Zaya Kingdom on the southern continent that produced exquisite goods. After these dignitaries really obtained and enjoyed it, they were all very fascinated. If the supplies carried by the fleet were not for the fleet's own use, the number of transactions was extremely limited, and the price was also touching, then these dignitaries and lords could even empty 2 supply ships. The fleet obtained local currency, but it was useless to take it back. It could only buy some supplies that the fleet could use locally, such as fresh water, fresh meat, vegetables, etc. Although the exploration fleet used goods to open the way, there were also some blind forces who saw that the fleet had only 5 ships and asked their men to disguise as pirates to attack. As a result, needless to say, whether the pirates who came to attack were real pirates or not, they were all sent to the bottom of the sea by Li Bao using dozens of cannons of the fleet to feed the fish. These pirates are really like carp crossing the river. They can't be killed or driven away. Why are they all rushing to die? After destroying another wave of pirates who came to rob, Li Bao couldn't help but sigh. Haha, generally, this is a common thing. Chang Sheng chuckled and shook his head, saying, when I use this method, I explained the key points. Chang Sheng looked at the broken wreckage floating on the sea not far away, some of which were still burning and emitting black smoke, and then looked to the west with a meaningful smile. Mr. Changsun, you said it, but who would have thought that there would be so many pirates here? Li Bao had no interest in the battle, that could only be called target practice, and he only felt impatient. If the fleet wants to collect coastal intelligence openly, then trade is the best excuse. Using trade as a pretext to conduct espionage, and also replenishing some supplies for the fleet, this is a win-win strategy. However, this strategy is not without disadvantages, that is, it will provoke pirates, but because the exploration fleet is a warship for military purposes, it is not afraid of these dirty things. When the plan of using trade to open the way was implemented, Chang Sheng explained this to Li Bao, but there were not many pirates encountered along the coast, so Li Bao regarded it as training. But when the exploration fleet arrived in the Hokuriku Sea, the situation became completely different. Basically, after each landing and trading, pirates would come to attack. Some lords of some territories even asked for it without any scruples, as if it was natural to give him the entire fleet. As for these people who lived in their own world and acted as if the world revolved around him, Li Bao had to argue with them a few times before, but he could hardly make any extra expressions afterwards. If he met these lords, if they knew what was good for him, Li Bao would ignore them and leave directly after collecting basic information. If they didn't know what was good for him, Li Bao would give them a few shells as a parting gift. Chang Sheng withdrew his gaze from the west, looked at Li Bao with a sharp gaze, bowed and made a suggestion. General Li, I have a plan. Li Bao knew what Chang Sheng was planning when he saw him like this, so he urged him expectantly, Mr. Changsun, what good plan do you have? Tell me quickly. General Li, I suggest that we take the initiative to attack and clear out the pirates in the Northern Territory on the grounds that there are too many pirates and they are hindering trade. Chang Sheng made his suggestion seriously. Li Bao asked in confusion, Mr. Changsun, what do you mean? Although there was no need to worry about whether the fleet could succeed or not, clearing out the pirates was a very time-consuming task. It was impossible for Li Bao to make the entire fleet busy, just based on Chang Sheng's words, and in the cold winter in the Northern Territory. Chang Sheng slowly said what he meant. General Li, the exploration fleet has come here to the north, and they travel north and south under the pretext of trade. So far, all the pirates we have encountered are mainly powerful people on the ground, and this is even more so in the northern region. They are rampant. With Chang Sheng's wisdom, he knew long ago that except for a small number of pirates who happened to meet, most of the pirates had instructions from the people behind them. Not to mention that they went north this time to collect intelligence. Chang Sheng would definitely know such a simple thing. Although the pirates are rampant, what does it have to do with my fleet? Li Bao meant that, even if there were more pirates, they would be sent to the exploration fleet, and there was no need to waste time and effort to clean them up. Chang Sheng slowly shook his head and said, this makes sense, but General Li, don't forget the purpose of our trip north this time. Before Li Bao could reply, Chang Sheng continued, while waiting for the ice sea to melt, the fleet will stay in the northern region. If it is not necessary, I don't want to start a war. In that case, why did you say this, sir? Li Bao was even more confused after hearing what Chang Sheng said. General Li, don't worry. Wait for me to come. Chang Sheng comforted Li Bao and continued to explain, the ice and snow island is covered with ice and snow all year round, but it produces silver. It is also the end point of the fleet heading north. Hearing this, Li Bao kept silent and just nodded. Chang Sheng glanced at Li Bao, and seeing that the other party did not interrupt him this time, he continued, from what we know about the Belu coast, before the ice sea period, 5 territories jointly attacked the ice and snow island. Although they were repelled by the ice and snow island with fire attacks, the ice and snow island had already suffered a great loss of vitality. If nothing unexpected happens, when the ice sea melts, it will be the time when the ice and snow island will be destroyed. Chang Sheng paused here, and after seeing Li Bao's eyes asking please continue, He continued helplessly, the situation in our country, the Belu coast, the pirates in the northern region, the ice and snow island, all these things. I wonder if General Lee has thought of anything. He also felt it was boring if Chang Sun Sheng was the only one talking, but who told Li Bao not to interrupt first, so he had to show his true colors as a diplomat, shamelessly asking questions actively. Chapter 274, Planning for the North Continent. Li Bao thought about it carefully with his chin propped up when he heard Chang Sun Sheng's question. Chang Sun Sheng did not interrupt Li Bao's thinking, but waited on the side and looked at the westland with a smile. Suddenly, there was no other sound on the warship except the whistling cold wind and the sound of waves hitting the ship. After a while, Li Bao raised his head and said, "Is the situation in our country that Mr. Chang Sun mentioned related to our country's war outside Shanhaiguan?" "Yes." Chang Sun Sheng did not say much, but just hummed to indicate that it was correct. "Then what is the relationship between the war outside the pass and Belu Sea, and Ice and Snow Island?" No matter how hard Li Bao thought about the connection between the two, he could not figure it out. Li Bao only knew that the war outside Shanhaiguan was related to Xiaguo, but he was not very clear about the details. In addition, what was the relationship between Xiaguo, far to the south, and Biu, thousands of kilometers away? Haha, General Li is already extraordinary for being able to grasp the key points. Chang Sun Sheng saw Li Bao's face turn ugly and immediately waved his hand and said, "I don't mean to make fun of the general." "Then what does the sir mean?" Li Bao frowned and said, "The general is all ears." "General Li, don't blame me, I will speak clearly." Seeing Li Bao's look, Chang Sun Sheng knew that the other party had resentment in his heart and thought to himself, Wu and Wen really have completely different thinking. The fleet's stay in the North Territory is different from the past. Even if the fleet's combat power is invincible, lions also have naps. If an accident occurs, we are far away from our country. Therefore, it is urgent to destroy the pirates. Chang Sun Sheng saw Li Bao nodded to agree with his point of view, and continued, "Eliminating the pirates can first establish prestige in this sea area, and secondly, it can ensure the long-term safety of the fleet, and relieve the pressure on the fleet. Thirdly, with such merits, whether returning home to receive rewards, or stabilizing the sea area here, it can improve the morale of the fleet." Chang Sun Sheng said this, and took a deep breath. Li Bao hummed, and took the opportunity to ask, "Sir, there is something you haven't said yet, do you have any concerns?" Chang Sun Sheng nodded first, then shook his head and said, "I will say what I haven't said later, but I have no concerns at all." "Then can you please teach me all at once?" When Li Bao heard half of it, he had completely forgotten the unhappiness in his heart just now. Chang Sun Sheng thought about it, as if he had figured something out, and said, "Well, I will tell you all at once. General Li, before I say anything, I want to ask you a question." After seeing Li Bao nod, Chang Sun Sheng asked, "I wonder what the general thinks of this sea area?" Li Bao was very surprised by Chang Sun Sheng's question, and he felt caught off guard. He also didn't know what Chang Sun Sheng's question had to do with what the other party was about to say, but Chang Sun Sheng asked so seriously, so Li Bao also thought about it seriously. After a while, Li Bao looked up and said, "Mr. Chang Sun, although the North Territory is extremely cold and full of pirates, it is still a rich land. Does the general intend to expand the territory? To seize this rich land for the country?" Chang Sun Sheng finally said his purpose. That. Li Bao was a little at a loss when he heard this, and didn't know what to say. Li Bao looked at Chang Sun Sheng's ambition that could not be hidden, and immediately calmed down. He took 2 deep breaths and said slowly, "Although this general has the intention to expand the territory, he has no ability to expand the territory. General, you are wrong." Chang Sun Sheng shook his head firmly and said, "Now there is a godsend opportunity in front of the general. It depends on whether the general is willing to give it a try. Since there is such a good opportunity, why didn't you say it earlier?" Li Bao asked back, "But how can we fight for this?" Li Bao knew that the opportunity should not be missed, and he also knew that there is no free lunch. Since there is a good opportunity, there must be a crisis. "General, rest assured, I said to give it a try, not for other reasons, nor did I ask you to risk the safety of the fleet for this. I just wanted you to make up your mind." Seeing Li Bao's determination, Chang Sun Sheng relaxed his face and smiled. Li Bao suddenly felt like he couldn't help laughing. He pointed at Chang Sun Sheng and said, "Sir, you really like to make fun of me. If you have any good ideas, please speak frankly. General, you are too polite. I don't mean to make fun of you." Chang Sun Sheng bowed his hands and apologized. "I'll tell you right away." Chang Sun Sheng accepted the gift, turned around, first pointed to the western coastline, then pointed to the north, and said in a deep tone, "Many territories on the coast of the North Continent are plotting to buy the silver mines on the ice and snow island." Finally, pointing to the warship under his feet, he said sternly, "This is our chance. Clearing pirates is beneficial to the trade in the Northern Territory, and the place where trade is most needed is the ice and snow island." Chang Sun Sheng explained quickly. "In early summer, when many forces attack the ice and snow island, we can support and make friends with the cold island. We can use this favor as an opportunity to establish a friendly place in this northern region and lay the foundation." After saying this, Chang Sun Sheng also took a deep breath to relieve the urgency of saying too much in one sentence and not having time to breathe. Li Bao was still digesting Chang Sun Sheng's words with a look of shock on his face. Chang Sun Sheng continued, "General Li should know that the southern continent is in chaos, but the territories outside of that are all at peace. Well, this general knows." After digesting Chang Sun Sheng's words, Li Bao asked puzzledly, "I wonder what the connection is between the war in the south and this plan?" Chang Sun Sheng did not answer Li Bao's question, but continued to ask, "General Li, do you know why our country did not go out of the pass and sweep across the southern continent?" "This general doesn't know." Li Bao frowned and shook his head, then as if he thought of something, he said uncertainly, "It seems to be related to the insufficient population of our country." General Li is right, but not entirely. Chang Sun Sheng looked at Li Bao's even more puzzled expression and explained, "The reason why the war outside the pass was only in the southern continent and did not affect the central continent is because the long-term stability of the central continent is a foregone conclusion. And the reason why our country has not gone out to sweep across the southern land is precisely because the continent outside the pass is not in chaos yet. Once our country goes out, it will be hostile to the entire continent. With our current national strength, it is not enough for one country to fight against the whole world." Chang Sun Sheng's explanation made Li Bao know a lot of secrets that he didn't know before, and he also knew that politics was something he really couldn't touch. Therefore, take this opportunity to provoke war in the northern land. The north and the south are in chaos, leaving only the central area to defend. The so-called orthodoxy and convention are no longer useful. At that time, whether our country advances or defends, attacks or stabilizes, will all be decided by the monarch." Every word of Chang Sun Sheng's words is so sonorous and powerful. Chapter 275, Annihilation of the Pirates. The plan was set, and Li Bao led the fleet to patrol the northern region and wiped out all the pirates he encountered. Of course, he knew about the pirate islands, but in order not to alert the enemy and achieve success in one fell swoop, Li Bao pretended not to know and never got away from or close to the pirate islands. When the exploration fleet went out to sea again, Chang Sun Sheng, after a long patrol, destroyed a single pirate ship and suggested, "General Li, it's almost done. It's February now, and it will be early summer in January. It's time to wrap up." After 4 months of cleaning, the entire Blue Sea was cleared up. There were very few pirates along the coast, which made some people happy and some people hate it. The merchants were happy because they were finally not disturbed by pirates, so they could do business with confidence. What they hated was that such a powerful fleet of their country was nearby, which destroyed their interests, because many pirates were cultivated by these vested interests, or even the pirates themselves. Most of the lords were more worried. Even if the Tsar fleet had all kinds of seemingly reasonable reasons, it was inevitable that these lords would feel uneasy. The reason why Chang Sun Sheng proposed that the fleet act in the northern region was that the fleet had come here to do business, and in order to protect the safety of the fleet and to make friends with foreign countries, they took special action to fight pirates and made due responsibilities for the peace of the northern seas. It was precisely because of these reasons that the forces on the shore should not directly oppose it on the surface, otherwise it would be telling others that the pirates were their people. Therefore, the Zaire exploration fleet has been busy fighting pirates, at least on the surface. If you want to act, then you have to finish it. For this reason, even the spring festival from the 10th to the 11th year of Cheyenne Key was spent on the fleet. Li Bao asked the soldiers to celebrate a little to boost morale. It's not that Li Bao is stingy, but in this distant foreign northern region, some supplies unique to Zaire cannot be replenished. Not to mention the ammunition used in the battle. Just say that the staple food that is indispensable in life, rice and flour, is also a little less. For this reason, all the officers and soldiers of the fleet usually eat some local grains. These grains are very different from the black beans of the southern continent. They are similar to the wheat of Zaire country, but they are brown and have a much rougher taste. Fortunately, they are not bad. The chefs use the inherent talent of China to prepare them, so that the soldiers can be considered full. Mr. Changson is right. This general has the same idea. Seeing that it is becoming increasingly difficult to encounter pirates recently, Li Bao notes that the time has come to clean up the last pirate gathering place in the sea. Since the two of them have the same opinion, Li Bao gave an order the fleet to change the sailing direction and head southeast. With a burst of horns from the fleet turned its bow and headed towards the pirate islands to clean up this last target. Because the exploration fleet was originally patrolling nearby, it took only a few hours to reach the outside of the pirate islands. Li Bao looked at the shadowy islands through the monocular telescope and ordered the whole fleet should be ready for battle. Following Li Bao's order, the soldiers of each warship picked up their weapons and ran to their respective positions, lifted the waterproof canvas of the artillery, and took out the ammunition from the storage layer in the shaft, ready to meet the upcoming battle. General, the fleet is ready for battle. In less than a few minutes, the officer's report made Li Bao nod with satisfaction, and then ordered the supply ship stays on standby, and the warship approaches the islands. Li Bao's order was quickly conveyed to the fleet, and the two supply ships in the rear slowed down and dropped anchor, while the destroyer and two frigates in the front continued to sail towards the pirate islands ahead. The fleet will set up a battle line, turn south, and sail around the islands. Li Bao looked at the islands in front of him, and ordered 3 warships to line up in a row, with the side of the ship facing the islands, so that they could fire artillery at any time. The exploration fleet had not spent the past few months in vain. The intelligence about the pirate islands was clear, and Li Bao knew the distribution of the islands, and where the reefs and waterways were. The fleet circled the islands under Li Bao's command. Seeing that the entire island seemed to be deserted and lifeless, Li Bao smiled contemptuously and ordered attack from the southern waterway. Bypassing the reefs, the 3 warships entered the interior of the islands and launched an attack on the pirate gathering place in the middle. The pirates saw that they could not hide anymore, so they launched a normal counterattack. How these water monkeys finally stopped hiding, and they still have some courage. Li Bao laughed at the pirates who were boarding the ship in a panic on the shore, and immediately ordered loudly, fire. Boom boom boom. The fleet's close-range artillery fire left the panicked pirates nowhere to hide, and the pirate ships docked on the shore were destroyed one after another. The flames of the shrapnel ignited a series of pirate ships on the shore, causing the pirates who were boarding the ship to run and jump off the ship in a hurry. It's not that no pirate ship successfully launched a charge, but before the other side rushed to the front of the Zaire warship to launch the boarding tactic, it was attacked by a series of crisp and continuous sounds, and a large number of casualties were injured and no longer able to launch a charge. When a pirate ship with almost no people slid to the vicinity of the warship due to inertia, it was discovered that the hull of the pirate ship was full of dense small holes, and some of the small holes were still leaking trickles of liquid. The deck of the pirate ship was full of pirates, and some pirates who had not yet died were still rolling and groaning in the pile of bloody corpses. From time to time, a bloody hand covered with stains suddenly stretched out and suddenly fell down. Such a scene was like purgatory. This pirate ship was attacked by Zaire sailors with muskets. Regardless of the size of the Zaire warship, everyone had a musket, and it was these muskets that caused this pirate ship to be attacked before it got close. After the 3 Xia warships slowly circled the central island, the pirates on the island looked at the blazing flames on the coast and wailed in despair. Since the Xia fleet started to fight pirates in the Northern Territory, the pirates had thought about launching an attack together to let these ignorant Xia people know that a powerful dragon cannot defeat a local snake. However, because the fleet's first step in fighting pirates is to start from the near sea and patrolling vertically and horizontally, the pirates will risk being annihilated if they tip off, and these pirates have already suffered a series of attacks. So even if they want to fight back together, they don't have the conditions and strength. Since then, the pirates in the Northern Territory have either been cleared out or are on the way to being cleared out. Especially after the Battle of the Pirate Islands, it can be declared that pirates have withdrawn from the stage of the Northern Territory. Even if there are still some lucky ones left, what can they do? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.